The madman has done it. Donald Trump has ordered the initial process to defund several cities, New York and other cities he's called anarchist cities. And when I first saw this, my initial reaction was just I bust out laughing because it's such like a bold move to take against a lot of these cities that are either not prosecuting the far left extremists who are burning everything down or defunding their police and then allowing people to go and burn everything down. And I was mentioning this a while ago. I don't live in New York. Why do I got to pay taxes to the federal government to then give money to New York when they're letting their whole city just rot and fester? I'm not okay with that. So when he did this, I started laughing, but I started thinking about it. It makes sense. If they're not going to pay the bills, if they're going to defund cops and everything's going to, fall into disarray, then there should be a review of federal funding if that's the case, because that's their choice, not anybody else's. Now, I do think it's a bold move because it depends on where the federal funding goes, and I'm assuming it's a lot of different grants, including policing and police resources. So this is Trump, man. We got a bunch of other stories too, though. Chicago, there's calls. Aldermen are calling in. I'm sorry. Aldermen want to call in the National Guard, but I should clarify, it probably won't happen. But there's an FBI tip about some gang violence, and me having family in Chicago, I've actually heard about this quite a bit, and it's getting serious. We also have in D.C., somebody got shot, and it was by a cop, I guess, and now there's riots erupting. So I think it's fair to say at this point, any shooting by any cop anywhere, I take that back. I was going to say any reason, but it seems like there are many circumstances where if a cop does anything, it's going to result in riots, and then you're going to get presidential candidates like Joe Biden saying you should be charged. So there's this viral video coming out of, I think it's somewhere in Los Angeles, where a guy crashes his car. He's all drunk, and the cop just lets him go, apparently. And it's like a huge scandal. And a lot of people have said, well, yeah, what if he tried detaining the guy and the guy died because he was too drunk? Then they'd be like, arrest the cop. So the cop's like, I don't know, I'll take an administrative write-up over national press attention and mass rioting. But the reason Donald Trump is the first one we're going to cover is Donald Trump defunding New York City and other anarchist cities. And there's one big reason why he's doing it, and it is Antifa. So we're lucky today to be joined by Drew Hernandez, who has covered and I guess successfully infiltrated Antifa. Is that correct, Drew?
Yeah, Tim, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. So a lot of the videos, a lot of the breaking news that's come out from all these different cities, it's you. You've been getting some of the biggest scoops just being there on the ground filming it. But I guess I didn't know this. You've actually hung out with a lot of these people. You've talked to them. You've been in vehicles with them. You consider that like infiltration, or is it just... it doesn't have to be so grandiose.
Yeah, I've got inside. I've actually picked up some intel on them. I've caught them on camera, like infrared doxing residents in Portland. Whoa. So a lot of the nature of my work is undercover. A lot of people don't understand that, and they kind of like are like, oh, why do you like fearmonger when you post something on Twitter? I'm like, because this is real stuff, you know. Like when you see what they're doing behind the curtain. There's a reason why they've been designated as domestic terrorists.
Or being investigated as acts of. It's a really weird legal circumstance. Mm-hmm. Was it you who... somebody put out a video where like Antifa gave them a paint balloon? That wasn't you, was it?
That was Kalen. Yeah, they literally gave him... It wasn't a balloon. It was a softball-sized light bulb.
Oh,
filled with paint.
And then they like seal it again.
They seal it and they throw it in the face of the target so they can, do their dirty work to discombobulate them, to blind them.
Well, we got a big breaking story, and I think we've got the inside scoop. I'm a few years out of the game. I haven't gone down since I think 2018 was probably the last time I was actually down covering Antifa stuff because they recognized me. Mm-hmm. And so it just became, I'd go down there and they'd point at me and I'd be like, I can't do this anymore, you know?
Yep.
But we got you here and you've infiltrated, so we'll talk about it.
Yep.
But the first story, of course, is the defunding of the anarchist cities. So before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and join the comments, join the super chats. We're live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And let's read this first story because this is breaking just about in the past hour. Check this out. Trump orders review to defund NYC other anarchist cities. And I find the title interesting. He orders a review because right away that actually sounds pretty good. You don't want to just be like, we're taking all your money away, because what if there's money for like orphans? Mm-hmm. You know, hold on. Like the orphans shouldn't suffer because the city's defunding their police. But if it is towards certain programs that aren't, someone's immediate health care or something, then maybe it makes sense. But then in the story, they actually say he's just ordering them to do it. So here we go. They say President Trump is ordering the federal government to begin the process of defunding New York City and 3 other cities where officials allowed lawless protests and cut police budgets amid rising violent crime, the Post can exclusively reveal. Trump on Wednesday signed a 5-page memo ordering all federal agencies to send reports to the White House Office of Management and Budget that detail funds that can be redirected. New York City, Washington, D.C., Seattle, and Portland are initial targets as Trump makes law and order a centerpiece of his re-election campaign after months of unrest and violence following the May killing of George Floyd. Quote, my administration will not allow federal tax dollars to fund cities that allow themselves to deteriorate into lawless zones, Trump says in the memo, which twice mentions New York Mayor Bill de Blasio by name. Good.
Excellent.
Where are you from, Drew?
I'm from California.
All right. So, but have you spent time in New York at all?
I've done reporting in New York, and when I did, interestingly, when the whole painting the BLM mural on the floor was happening, I was there that night, and someone was going to do it again, right? Some patriots, they had all their paint cans, they were ready to smear it. They were going to do it. They were going to smear it. But NYPD, one of the officers came up and were like, hey, what are you doing? You can't do this. They confiscated it. And then I actually questioned the officer. I was like,
interesting.
Where are you getting your orders from? And he's like, it's coming from the top. I was like, de Blasio? So, and I said, you mean to tell me that Black Lives Matter could riot, loot, vandalize New York, but patriots can't do the same thing? And he's like, well, my orders aren't coming from me. They're coming from the top. I was like, de Blasio? And he said, yes.
Interesting. Wow.
That's on video.
But think about it. Yeah. I mean, there was mass looting in New York. Mm-hmm. They defunded their police. They got rid of the plainclothes unit. Mm-hmm. Lethal crime, I should say, specifically started to skyrocket because petty crime is going down. But lethal crime, shootings, we had that horrifying video. I don't know if you saw it, where the dude was walking with his 4-year-old daughter, and then a car just pulls up and goes bang and kills him. Mm-hmm. And this guy's got the nerve to be like, where should we allocate our funds? Let's paint Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower because Trump sucks.
Yeah.
And then they have 27 cops guarding that mural. Dude, and I can't believe the cops are doing it.
When I was in New York reporting that weekend, there was I think a week or two before, the 1-year-old little black baby was caught in the crossfire and was shot and killed.
Wow.
So I went to Defend the Blue gathering, right? And all the SJWs, they all showed up to counter protest, and they were literally chanting. Some of the Defend the Blue guys were like, "What about the baby? What about his life? He's black. What about him?" And the counter protesters, all the Black Lives Matter people, were like, "Shut up about the baby thing already."
Wow. I'm not surprised.
This is all on camera, so if people don't believe
course.
me, I document this stuff so people can see.
Yeah.
It's not only hypocritical, it's evil, bro. Like, what do you mean, shut up about the baby?
And at Lives Matter Show on Twitter. Because normally I pull up all the citations, but everything you say, you post videos of it, you're on Twitter.
I'll cite everything that's video documented.
So let's it was a nice little sidestep to rag on de Blasio a little bit. Let's keep reading and see what's going on.
Got it.
They say, quote, to ensure that federal funds are neither unduly wasted nor spent in a manner that directly violates our government's promise to protect life, liberty, and property, it is imperative that the federal government review the use of federal funds by jurisdictions that permit anarchy, violence, and destruction in America's cities. I love that. Permit anarchy. Yes, it's like, it's not really anarchy if you're allowing it to happen. It's just you're not enforcing the law. I guess you can call it permitting anarchy. It's a funny way to phrase it. Federal agencies must detail all federal funds provided to Seattle, Portland, New York, and D.C. Also, within 14 days, Attorney General Bill Barr must develop a list of anarchist jurisdictions that permit violence and the destruction of property to persist and have refused to undertake reasonable measures to restore order. The memo does not require Barr to include the 4 cities, possibly for legal reasons. The memo instructs White House Budget Director Russ Vought to issue guidance in 30 days from Wednesday to the heads of agencies on restricting eligibility of or otherwise disfavoring, to the maximum extent permitted by law, anarchist jurisdictions in the receipt of federal grants. The amount of money impacted by Trump's order could be massive. New York City, for example, gets about $7 billion a year in federal aid. New York is named because of a crime wave as officials cut police funds. The city had a 177% spike in shootings in July compared to last year. The city council approved a budget in July that cuts $1 billion from the NYPD's $6 billion budget and eliminates $537 million in capital spending. The memo says that in New York City, city officials have allowed violence to spike. In light of this unconscionable rise in violence, I have offered to provide federal law enforcement assistance, but both Mayor de Blasio and Governor Andrew Cuomo have rejected my offer. And that's true. Mm-hmm. While violence has surged, arrests have plummeted. In a 28-day period during the months of June and July, New York City arrests were down 62% from the same period in 2019. Amidst the rising violence, Mayor Bill de Blasio and New York City Council agreed to cut $1 billion from the New York Police Department from their budget, including by canceling the hiring of 1,163 officers. The memo also cites NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea's June disbandment of plainclothes units. Police officials have cited this decision as a factor contributing to the rise in violence. The document knocks the performance of Democratic mayors in each city, as well as state leaders. Quote, as a result of these state and local government policies, persistent and outrageous acts of violence and destruction have continued unabated in many of America's cities, such as Portland, Seattle, New York, and New York, the memo says. In D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser allowed rioters and anarchists to engage in violence and destruction in late May and early June, requiring me to call in the National Guard to maintain law and order in the nation's capital. The memo in the works for weeks does not directly reference activists confronting guests of Trump's RNC speech as they left the White House, probably because it was being put together a while ago. This is fairly long, so I'll just read the conclusion. They say a senior administration official told the Post, taxpayers shouldn't foot the bill for local politicians' dereliction of duty. And President Trump is ensuring taxpayer dollars are not wasted by lawless mayors. The list of cities and possibly states will be updated periodically with input from the Justice Department, the official said. And federal agencies will be directed to revise grant conditions when applicable to uphold the rule of law. The official said Portland, the smallest city on the list, got more than $252 million in federal funds in fiscal 2019, including for police operations. Well, you've been on the ground in many of these cities, right?
Let me highlight this real quick.
Yeah.
That last sentence, the official said Portland, the smallest city on the list, got more than $252 million federal funds in fiscal 2019. At the press conference the other day, the police chief in Portland made it very clear that they are being exhausted of their resources. That's questionable. How is it that they're receiving $252 million, but the police bureau in Portland is being exhausted of their resources? I don't blame the police. I don't blame the police chief. Ted Wheeler, these governors that are in positions of power that designate and delegate this kind of money, it doesn't add up. This is why the investigation's taking place. And I've said this on air, different podcasts, Tim. People have asked me and they've questioned me, Drew, so what do you think we do? What's the answer to this? And I'm like, investigations need to take place.
You're saying that someone's taking that money?
No, I believe that there are elected officials that are working with Antifa, working with different organizations in these cities. That's why they're labeling them as anarchists, and somehow dishing money to fund these people.
Well, but you think that?
I'm almost positive.
We'll pull the story up.
Yeah.
Quote, I am Antifa. Could be Portland's next mayor.
Okay, well.
So I'm pretty sure.
There it is.
Dude,
I think you're right.
The city councilman in Seattle led the protesters to the homes of other politicians and the mayor herself. It was a city councilwoman, other council members' homes, and the mayor, and they all got really, really mad about it. Yeah, there are politicians that actively work with the funding thing. I don't know, because it's not expensive to be a destructive moron running around smashing things. It's actually quite cheap.
Yeah.
You find a rock, you throw it. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. As for politicians actively being engaged in this behavior, quite literally, yes.
Yes.
We watch it happen all the time.
Yeah.
So, but I will point out, as it goes with the $252 million, I mean, the Portland police have been at every single night for 3 months. That's a lot of overtime. It's a lot of medical bills, equipment, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I got to imagine that's expensive.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know about $252 million, though.
That's what I'm saying, man.
That's crazy.
They are exhausted. I have families of the PPB that reach out to me. They're families of police officers. The horror stories are insane.
Like what? Give us some. What's going on?
One family reached out to me and let me know that their family, a police officer's family, was doxxed. And that can only happen if an elected official or some insiders in the government release. This is private information. You can't get police officers' home addresses or anything like that. And Antifa has showed up to their house and threatened their children in their front yard.
Are these the tactical officers who come out for the riots?
No, these are stationed in Portland, not DHS.
That's what I mean though. So like when the riot cops come out, they don't have, do they have badge numbers and badges or their
I
names?
think sometimes they do. I'm not quite too sure.
'Cause
Sometimes
if
they do cover them.
Because if it, right. I know that with the feds that came out, they had identifiers, like, you know, NZ1 was one of them. I think it was NZ1 or something like that. That you can't dox. But if I see your name and I see your badge number, then it's going to be really easy to find out everything about you.
Yeah.
Everything. So that's why I'm curious. Like
I think this specific family isn't actually on the lines.
they're not doing riot work.
Yeah, they're not doing riot work.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to tell you, man, the way Ted Wheeler acts and the way the attorney general in Oregon sued to defend the rioters.
Yeah, and the Portland DA is friends with Antifa, right?
Well, he did an interview apparently. Like so somebody tweeted out that the DA himself is like a far left guy who's friends with these people because he had done an interview where he mentioned that once he's elected, he's going to totally, you know, what do they call it? Restorative justice or whatever. I don't know, what does that mean? Restorative justice?
It could mean anything these days.
It's just
whatever their definition is. It could be restorative justice according to an anarchist or a communist. That's a whole nother definition. So you got to kind of know in context what these people are talking about.
Well, what they said, and I think this was the Veritas videos, the undercover videos from the Bernie Sanders staffers. It's sending people to a gulag to break rocks so they learn what it means to do hard work.
There you go.
It's funny because these people haven't done a hard day's work in their lives. Most of these people, I don't know, tell me if you think I'm wrong. I don't think many of these Antifa people have lifted a heavy object in their life. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? What's your opinion on that?
I mean, a lot of these people, they're just a lot of soy boys, you know, like I'm not, that's not derogatory. I'm being honest. Every now and then I'll see an Antifa dude out there that is kind of fit, but they are bold in their numbers. Like some police officers that I've talked to, they've told me anytime they get arrested, like these kids are just so bold on the street. They're just in their face. They're cussing. They're going insane. But when they get arrested, when they're with the police, just zip. They're like these little church kids.
We got to talk about this, but I want to ask you a couple more questions about the funding.
If that exists.
We got a really funny story to talk about in terms of Antifa curling up into a fetal position and crying their eyes out. But I do want to ask you, how many cities have you been to so far with all the rioting from Antifa?
Man,
all of them.
Kenosha, Seattle, Chaz, New York, DC, some stuff in LA.
The big ones that Trump's talking about.
Yep.
Do you think that, like, is Trump right to say that the cities, the governments are kind of allowing this or exacerbating it or just not doing their jobs?
Oh, 100%, especially in Portland.
I mean, for sure.
100%, because the police are trained. They're trained to be able to put a stop to all of this stuff, but their hands are tied. They're ordered not to use the kind of excessive force that they're trained to use against anarchy.
Well, hold on. Excessive force. They're trained to use appropriate force, and they're told they can't use appropriate force.
Yeah.
The excessive force thing, I think, you know, that's Antifa will argue that any force against them is excessive. But like, dude, if you're throwing Molotov
cocktails
and a cop pushes you, and then
you're cementing the police precinct door with people inside of it, and throwing Molotov cocktails, and you know the police are gonna have to use.
That was Seattle, right?
Yeah, that was Seattle, man.
The mayor of Portland said that they were trying to kill people. That's when they barricaded the back and the front of the I think I don't know which.
Dude, they're trying to kill him. They were literally lighting the base of his condo on fire the other night. He's moved. He apologized to the residences around. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm so sorry. This has nothing to do with you guys, you know, or politics or anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? These are your constituents. You were elected to protect these people.
He could have him. He's a police commissioner, isn't he?
Yep.
Can't he just have him arrested?
Yep.
Well, I guess the problem is the DA.
Yep. You know what mistake he made though? You know what he said in the press conference a couple days ago?
What did he say?
When he was coming down on Trump, he said, "I would something to around the lines of I would die for a Trump supporter to be able to protest peacefully in front of my house." Those are some fighting words from Antifa.
Yeah,
You know the Proud Boys are heading to Portland.
Those are some fighting words.
I remember that.
You hear the Proud Boys are heading up there. Was it September 26th? I think
24th, somewhere around there.
I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I respect people's rights to peacefully protest, so far be it from me to tell anybody what they can or can't do, but they're going to get probably 1 million hours of footage of right-wing extremists.
Yeah.
Every angle. There'll be like a dude will. It's like the Ryan Long joke where I don't know. Have you ever seen Ryan Long's comedy videos?
I've seen a couple.
He did one where it's how do you sell footage to Fox and CNN, and one of his jokes is that he accidentally sent footage of young black men picking up garbage to Fox News, and they're like, "What are we supposed to do with this?" And he goes, "You can play it backwards. It looks like they're littering." It's a great joke. He's hilarious. But that's the kind of stuff. I mean, it's a joke, but yeah, you'll get a video of one of these Proud Boys like flicking a cigarette into a trash bin, and then they'll freeze frame it with his middle finger up saying he's flicking off residents. You know what I mean? They'll just like, they'll go nuts with it.
Yeah.
But hey, man, people have a right to peacefully protest. I just think Antifa's going to show up, start a fight, and then the journalists are not going to be aiming the cameras at Antifa.
Yep.
They're going to be aiming the cameras at the Proud Boys.
Yeah, they have their own designated media. The streamers, they're all designated. You know, they claim to be centrists. They claim to be down the middle, but they're not.
They're absolutely not. When I used to do live streaming, like when I first started doing streaming back at Occupy Wall Street, I got physically threatened. They came up to me and they said, from now on, you only film the police. You don't film what we do. And I said, I'm going to film everybody. And they were like, if you do that, we will stop you.
And that's the moment Tim Pool became a right-wing extremist.
I mean, the funny thing is...
kind of, yeah, sure.
But no, so this is 2011.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not, yeah.
The core of the activists at Occupy Wall Street opposed what people were just referring to as the black bloc extremists or the black bloc anarchists. There were a handful of them that had influence in the protests, but most people were like, Tim, we love what you do. Keep doing it. Don't stop. And it was really interesting to see then when I went to the Deplorable, when Trump got elected, some people walked up to me and they were wearing MAGA hats and they were like, hey, we're big fans. We've been big fans since Occupy Wall Street. And I was like, since Occupy Wall Street, like, but you're here to Trump Deplorable, like you're wearing MAGA hats. And they're like, oh, yeah. We used to be big, Democrats and supported Bernie, and now we're voting for Trump and all that stuff. And I saw a lot of that. A lot of the people that I met back in the day who were active with Occupy Wall Street, not all of them, just a decent amount, always hated the violence. It undermined what they were trying to do because they had taking that space and getting the press attention they did was helping them. And then as soon as the violent people came in and started smashing things and attacking people, it undermined what they were trying to accomplish. Yeah. Now I see a lot of those people are voting for Trump.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, man, I have a friend, and I love it when the left thinks it's always a lie, like it's being made up. And I'm like, dude, why would I tell these stories? Just make them up. It's the stupidest thing ever. I met someone in Ferguson at a Black Lives Matter protest, hated Trump. 2016, hated Trump. 2017, hated Trump. 2018, 2019, hated Trump. 2020, loves Trump.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's the human trafficking issue because like you get the marshals announcing they're catching these criminals and saving these kids, and a lot of people are saying I don't care about anything else. Trump, he's sending out the feds and they're catching these traffickers and the arrests are going way up. But anyway, yeah. Have you? We'll jump over to the crybaby Antifas in the fetal position, but
notice people. I don't think you realize, Tim, what you mean to a lot of people. Dude, especially after when you were on with Rogan and Jack Dorsey and that. I don't think you realized, Tim, and I know you want to be humble about it, but that podcast, bro, like I felt like I was watching like the UFC. I know. I'm being dead serious. I'm being Joe Rogan's right there commentating, and I felt like I was watching the UFC. Like there are so many things that people have been wanting to say that you said, and I just want to let you know, man. Like you mean so much to the culture right now. You literally, bro. You were like it was like Zelda, right? It was literally like Zelda, bro. Like the final boss of the game. Like you were going one-on-one with Ganondorf, right? And like you're like the hero of time.
That's a crazy story.
You are
man.
the hero of time, bro. Tim Pool is the hero of time.
Well, I appreciate it.
So many people, left and right, they because of that, they love you because of that, man.
I appreciate that. It's crazy. It is a crazy story how it all came together. I think Joe had this long plan that I had no idea what was going on. Like he knew what he was planning on doing. He was putting the pieces together. I didn't until like at the last minute. He's like, "Hey, bro, you want to come on?" And I was like, I told him, I literally said to him, I was like, "Bro, I'm like a baby bird in the nest. You're kicking me out, trying to see if I can fly, man." Yep. I don't know if I literally said that. I'm like,
well, you flew, bro.
And yeah, and
you
so
flew, you soared, bro.
That's right.
I was like, I just do my thing, right? So you can say this stuff. I just sit in a room and I yell at a camera all day.
So-
I just I just do my thing.
So my favorite part about that was that Tim did not graduate high school, and he was up against the single best lawyer that money can buy, and he pretty much owned her, and it
Was
was
she?
fantastic.
That's a
what I'm
compliment
saying.
for
Are you
her.
kidding? The Twitter lawyer? Seriously.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. What that interview meant to a lot of people, you just maybe you're not even aware of how much
Probably
that meant
not,
to people, man.
because I'm just sitting in a room and I was like, I'm gonna tell them what for. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
and that
I
was
don't-
just epic.
But I mean, even after that, there were things that I was like, I forgot to bring this up. I forgot to bring this up. I forgot to bring this up.
It was sufficient, man. I'm
Well-
telling you, it was like watching UFC. Joe Rogan's right there commentating.
It's perfect.
I was rooting you on.
Yeah. He's
got to-
millions of people were as well.
I
that
think-
day.
That beer.
I think he's got to do. I think Joe should do more of these crossfire style,
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
Because it used to be a big thing on who did this? CNN, was it CNN or Fox News?
Crossfire?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was CNN.
Do you know what the Crossfire was?
Yeah.
They got rid of it, but it was like a liberal conservative, and they would like talk.
That's great,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was a really good idea, and Jon Stewart like ragged on it anyway. But anyway, let's talk about Crybaby Antifa.
Yes.
Let's do it.
So the first thing I want to ask you is, you have been on the ground covering stuff. I can imagine you've been threatened by Antifa.
Yep.
They talk big game, right?
Physically assaulted, threatened, called all kinds of stuff, a white supremacist. The list goes on. Even
You're a
though
white-
I'm Hispanic. Last name
Yeah,
ends
what?
with
Hernandez.
last name ends with a Z. Just try and
Huh.
wrap your mind around that one, guys.
Yeah, man. I
So
don't know.
so they talk big game.
They talk.
But
big.
you were saying earlier that when they get arrested, all of a sudden,
That's what police have told me.
but are they saying they just clam up and like quiet up because they know they need lawyers?
They're just. This is how it was described to me. They're just nice little kids, very polite, not chanting the vile chants anymore. Just very nice, very polite.
That's so weird,
And they
man.
they just walk right out when they're let out.
That's so weird.
That's how it was.
No,
described to me.
because I like this story better. Check this out. This is from the New York Post. Antifa commander with flamethrower
Whoa.
burst into tears during arrest. Cops say.
I love everything about this.
This is so
The
insane.
flamethrower, the
What-
tears,
why
the
does it-
commander.
He's got a flamethrower. He's called Commander Red. Dude, this is
man.
how old is this guy? He's 23.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was like, how old? I think I was like 7 years old, and there was a Nintendo game called Mighty Bomb Jack.
Yeah.
And I took a garbage bag. I was a little kid, and I was jumping up and down, and I jumped off my bed, and I slammed my leg on the bedpost, and I started screaming and crying. That's exactly what this is. But I was like 7 when that happened. It's a true story, mind you. My mom will attest to this.
They do this. I have so many clips, and I do this a lot, and this is probably why they want to kill me. But
You're laughing about it.
I put little I compile clips back to back to back of just Antifa getting,
Supercut.
just getting pwned
Yes.
by police, dude. You know, and it just totally screaming,
Dude.
squealing, crying, and it's just. But a lot of people don't understand. Like when you see the footage of police tear gassing or using, non-lethal munitions, they always post that, but they never post the beginning.
Exactly.
Where they're antagonizing police, sometimes for hours. And you know this. I'm not.
Of
You already
course.
know this, but
No, no,
for
but
people, people that are listening, they will antagonize for hours, just all kinds of vile obscenities. They'll start
Racist
throwing
stuff. Yeah,
racist,
dude.
throwing Molotov
Awful.
cocktails.
Yeah.
They bait them, and then the police come out and respond, and that's what Antifa will
I've
post.
I've seen some stuff from cops that is absolutely objectionable.
Yeah.
I have seen instances where in Ferguson a cop walked right up and just there was no conflict, there was no fighting, and just one cop just threw a flashbang at a bunch of random people, and that sparked chaos.
Yeah.
There's that incident in Oakland back during the Occupy era where this dude got shot in the head with, I think it was a beanbag or a tear gas canister, and it gave him brain damage, and he fell down. And when people ran in to try and help him, a cop chucked a flashbang into the crowd of people.
Oh, snap.
Cops aren't perfect.
No, they're not. They're human beings.
However, what people need to understand about a lot of these clips is that, yes, I think reform is a good thing. I think those cops should be held accountable,
Yep.
and we need to absolutely have a review of the use of force because we're entrusting these people who go out there to do the right thing and to try and keep us safe. But what they don't tell you is that oftentimes these people go out with great intentions, the cops, and then some Antifa will walk up to a black cop and start screaming every possible racial slur they can think of. Yep. Dude, I don't know if you saw the video from the Portland ICE where a bunch of white dudes were screaming just, man, some of these racial slurs that they were screaming at these guys. And bravo to these cops who kept their cool, did their job, and did the right thing.
See, but this is why, like you said earlier, just so people can connect the dots, This is why they'll come out and say, you don't film us, only cops.
Exactly.
That's exactly why.
Yep. Yeah, dude. There was a recent viral video of this Antifa woman screaming at a black woman of like racist stuff about white supremacy. And then some guy very calmly says to this screeching white woman, "You're screaming at a black woman. Don't you think there's something wrong with that?" And her eyes are like bugged out. And she's like, "No, I'm the only one who can speak because I'm white."
Demoralized.
This is crazy.
Right.
We definitely got to talk about Commander Red. I'm not forgetting Commander Red. Okay, we're gonna talk
Mr.
about
Flamethrower
Commander
there.
Red.
Yeah, he gave himself a code name and all that stuff.
Oh man.
Red
But-
Wing leader.
Think about what it means when you have a white woman screaming, "I'm the only one," or things to that effect. These are white progressives who are being told by avowed racists like the Robin DiAngelo and White Fragility that here's what you need to do: have a white racial awakening and form a white collective to improve the betterment of the poor minorities.
Wow.
That's their message, dude.
Yeah.
That I'm like, what's the difference between that and like, I don't know, like white supremacists? You're gonna go out and claim that you are the one who has to do everything because you're the white person with privilege. Yeah, it just sounds like good old white supremacy to me.
Extra steps.
I mean,
Yeah, with extra steps.
You guys have seen the ex-KJB, right? Yuri
Yeah,
Bezmenov,
yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah. We get everybody.
Everyone tells
Dude,
us,
like that.
yeah.
We're living that right now.
Totally.
You know,
Yeah.
the first step of subversion, right? Demoralization, that's already completed.
Yeah.
We're in the process right now of destabilization. And I think panic right now and crisis.
Yeah.
That's what he taught. And right now, I mean, that was decades ago. But the first two things to go during subversion was religion and education. Those are the two things that get
Education's
attacked.
gone.
That's
Oh,
where
yeah.
we are. And there's multiple media, all that stuff. But right now, I think we are definitely living through that.
I just had-
100%.
I just had a really horrifying thought.
Oh no.
Let's hear it.
You see this guy right here? Look at those eyes. This is Commander Red. Okay, there he is.
Oh my sweet summer
The
child.
horrifying thought was like, we're sitting here laughing and we're like, look at this moron.
Yeah.
And then in 20 years, he's pulling the cord on the guillotine
Oh,
with us in
gosh.
it.
Yep.
And he's got like a rugged beard and he's all ripped and he's
man.
like, remember that episode?
Oh, no. That's
126
what did it.
Timcast IRL, September 2nd, 2020. And I'm like, no.
That's it.
No, I wouldn't be crying. I'd be like, bring it, commie.
Spit in his
And I'd
face.
spit
Yeah.
on him. Get my head chopped off.
Yeah.
Send me to heaven. I'm ready.
Right. Yeah.
He like looks in the basket in the last split second of life. I go, yeah, and I spit blood on him. Okay, that was
man.
that was a little gruesome, but let's read it.
Commander Red.
Yes.
An Antifa leader known as Commander Red was busted carrying a flamethrower to a Wisconsin Black Lives Matter rally and dropped into the fetal position and began crying.
Aw.
Yep. Yep.
Sounds about right.
Dude,
I have seen
man.
that countless times.
Yeah, man.
Matthew
Every single
Banta,
time.
23, is known to be a violent Antifa member who incites violence in otherwise relatively peaceful protests, a criminal complaint in his Green Bay arrest record insisted, according to WBAY. He was carrying stickers and a flag for the controversial group, the name of which is short for anti-fascist, along with military-grade 5-minute smoke grenades, fireworks rockets, and a flamethrower. How did he get a flame? Was he? Are we talking like one of those Boring Company Elon Musk
No.
flamethrowers?
Now I really want to know.
Because those ones aren't that strong.
Yeah.
But like, did he have a real? They say Banta was stopped after being spotted with a whole bunch of white people with sticks, baseball bats, and helmets heading
like
toward a
Antifa.
BLM event in Green Bay. Police said in the criminal complaint. The others fled when a cop blocked them with his squad car, but Banta was stopped and dropped into the fetal position and began crying. The police report said he complained that the officer got on top of him, which police denied. It's worrisome when people associated with Antifa come here to Green Bay from out of town for the purposes of committing violent acts, Green Bay Police Chief Andrew Smith told the station. At the time of Saturday's arrest, Banta was out on $10,000 cash bond after being accused of pointing a loaded gun. Wait, what? Pointing a loaded gun at a police officer.
Whoa.
As well as biting and kicking a cop at a protest earlier this month, the report said. A condition of his bond was that he can't have a dangerous weapon, according to the Brown County District Attorney's Office.
Oh, wow. I wonder
All he
why.
saw was dangerous weapons.
Jeez. The 23-year-old from Neenah, about 40 miles south of Green Bay, was charged with obstructing an officer and 2 counts of felony bail jumping after Saturday's arrest, the report said. He was released late Monday on $2,500 bond. Court records show. How did this guy get released? They literally
$2,500.
They literally arrested him for jumping bail.
Oh my
And they're
gosh.
like, let's let him go.
We'll just
Heck,
let
have
him
at
out.
it, buddy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Investigations.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah.
As he's walking out of the police station, sir, one, your flamethrower. You almost left it behind.
Oh man.
And he's
Sir,
like,
we
thanks,
apologize. We apologize for using force, but you're free to go. Here's your flamethrower.
Yeah. Here's all your weapons.
Here's your
back.
flamethrower.
Here's your flamethrower to use on us in the next 8 hours.
and
We'll
your
see you
gun,
outside.
yeah.
brother.
Like the guy at the desk of the
Next
department
time.
pulls up a big box and he goes, let's see, we've got one loaded Glock 9mm. What's this? Oh, we got a flamethrower. Boom. That's your flamethrower. And a couple cans of kerosene. I don't know what they use in
Grenades,
flamethrowers.
yeah.
A couple smoke bombs. And there you go, sir. Have a nice day.
We'll see you
Here's
soon.
your receipt for the bail.
Yep.
Here's what they say. Here's how it ends. They say he was one of 15 arrested at Saturday's Black Lives Matter protest that turned violent in the city and was deemed an unlawful assembly. Burning buildings, hurting people, shooting, looting, vandalizing. There's absolutely no way that is a form of protest. That's criminal behavior. You know what this article proves? It proves a couple things. Look at this guy. This dude. He doesn't. I'm sorry, man. It doesn't look like it doesn't look like he's lifted a heavy object in his life, save the flamethrower.
That is not an alpha.
I don't know. Sure.
No, it's
but
not.
listen, he gave himself a code name, right? He's LARPing.
Yeah.
But they don't realize they're actually hurting people.
Yeah.
Or like, it's crazy. You know, if you want to LARP, you get one of those pool noodles from like the pool shop and you put a stick in it. Congratulations, you got a staff. You can hit your friends. It doesn't hurt.
Yep.
It's very difficult to actually seriously hurt somebody with that. I guess you could fall on it or something. But this guy somehow got a flamethrower. Like how did he get a flamethrower?
These guys, man, they are funded. It's like you said, it's really easy for them to crowdsource.
Exactly.
And even in Portland, and I was saying this earlier before we started the podcast, is a lot of the locals support these guys.
That was interesting.
Oh,
to
definitely.
me.
They really like when I was on the ground when they kicked that dude in the head that night. When I was reporting that entire night before they kicked him in the head, this elderly couple, and you see it in the video, they show up. And I look to the side and I'm like, hey, you guys need to get out of here. They're like, no, we're going to box him in. We're going to box him in. They get out of the car and they're like ready to beat him up.
People are nuts, dude.
Psychos.
These elderly Portland residents, they have no idea what's going on. That's why it's like some of the locals have bought in to the lie and they support them. That's true.
Yeah.
Some journalists have actually been documenting that, and I think I need to do a better job of documenting that too, because it's part of the story.
I think, I was reading about Civil War because there have been an endless stream of these articles popping up over the past several years, just escalating as things get crazier and crazier. There's an article from Vox saying something like, what would it take to convince you to change your mind on Donald Trump? Mm-hmm. And they basically concluded that nobody will, because the tribal lines are so distinct and so far apart. There's no way to convince someone otherwise. Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing is, I know for a fact that these leftists are lying and are wrong. And I think many people do, but there are people who don't care. It's like, it almost feels like a bit of a cliche to say this, but a split between two tribes of logic versus emotion. Mm-hmm. You've got one side that includes liberals, conservatives, moderates. All of a sudden now you've got liberals wanting to vote for Trump. And on the left, you have people who you can't reason with.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, there are Trump supporters that you can't reason with. Mm-hmm. But I can sit down and have a conversation with 99.9% of Trump supporters and argue for like left-wing policy positions. And the example I often use is like when I was talking to Glenn Beck about pro-life versus pro-choice, mm-hmm. we ended with a smile and a handshake and said, that was a great conversation. Yep. And come on by anytime. You too, man. I appreciate it. It was good fun. Mm-hmm. And that's about it.
Yep.
On the left, you don't get that. You get elderly couples pulling up in cars yelling, get him, box him in. And there's like some dude they're trying to kill for no reason. Yep. He was trying to save somebody. Yeah. That's the level of insane zealotry.
Well, we've been subverted. We've been successfully demoralized as a culture, especially millennials. And I think alongside of that, it makes sense because that dude, that ex-KGB dude said, once that happens, it's impossible to change their mind. You can show them the truth.
Yeah.
You could take them to a gulag in the Soviet Union. You could take them to North Korea and show them what their ideas look like nationwide, and they still won't change their mind. And that's a dangerous place to be because it's a matter of ideology. All these ideologies, all these anti-fascist ideologies that have subverted so many people, they've poisoned so many people. And the propaganda is powerful. I think the turning point was Charlottesville. And this is why. Because the way propaganda works is the media, whoever it is, they'll put out a lie of what they want people to believe years in advance. We saw that with CNN. Trump is a racist. Trump is a white supremacist. Trump sides with Nazis. Trump this, Trump that. There was no evidence.
Right.
They'll put out the narrative with no evidence. And then when some time goes on and the slightest thing happens, like Charlottesville, even though it's a lie, the slightest thing happens, we told you so.
Right.
We told you so, and the nation is in an uproar. The lie was already set up. The slightest little bit of, it's not even evidence, but the slightest thing, they capitalize on it. Subversion.
It's happening again.
Subversion.
Joe Biden came out and said Trump's, violent militia invading these cities. Yep. And the Proud Boys announced they're going to Portland.
Yep. Just like, what's that group? Refuse Fascism, right?
Who's behind them, right?
Who exactly?
Revcom,
right?
Yeah,
exactly. Revcom. Their message has always been Trump is a fascist, Mike Pence is a fascist, with zero evidence for years. And now all of a sudden, Trump calls DHS into Portland. What's Nancy Pelosi saying? Secret police.
Stormtroopers.
Yeah. Boom.
Well, that all backfired on them.
Yeah.
And now they're in panic. Like Joe Biden rushing out of his basement to go to Kenosha after he said he wouldn't do it. They're hurting, and they know it. They know regular people have been like, you can't keep telling us these are peaceful protests when someone smashed out the window of my local barber shop.
Yep.
It's not peaceful.
Yeah, and burned down our car dealership.
Right. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I think if there's one thing that could make Trump lose the election, it's the Proud Boys going to Portland.
It could be a possibility.
And I'll say it again.
The election fraud is deep.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And I always want to make sure I preface this because there's a lot of people who might not have heard the other segments I've done on it. But Dr. Birx and Dr. Fauci have both said we can safely vote in person. Done. Yet for some reason, Democrats are like, no, we're not. We're gonna vote by mail anyway. So there's no reason to change the rules.
Yep.
But what really is worrisome to me is everything you just explained. I see it happening right now.
Yeah.
They are now claiming that Trump's militias are invading towns.
Yep.
The Proud Boys then announced they're going to do their march through Portland. Antifa is going to be lying in wait in the shadows to instigate something, and they're going to have their allied photographers. Antifa is going to throw a water balloon or something, and the Proud Boy is going to swing, and they're going to wait and time it perfectly, and you're going to get dude getting punched by Proud Boy. It's going to be on the front page of every paper. Trump's violent supporters, the rise of the brown shirts. We already saw this one tweet that got 102,000 retweets, probably more by now.
Yeah.
That it was like, it's about time we read the history of the Nazi brown shirts invading left-wing areas and starting violence, then claiming only they could solve the violence. As if that's what's happening. It's not.
No.
But that's why I'm like, look, first and foremost, if you want to peacefully protest, fine, go do it. But I can only assume, like, they have to realize.
And to go to your point, we've talked about this, me and the guys. We when we're reporting, when we go somewhere, we're fully aware that there's propaganda floating around the USA, that some of these things could possibly be staged. Now, I'm not like this crazy conspiracy theorist, but I'm fully aware that something could be taking place and I could be baited just to go in and get footage. And that's kind of where we are in the journalist reporting game right now, is we have to be very careful. Are we being baited into something? Are the Proud Boys being baited into something? Is it going to, like you're saying, and I think I agree with you. I think it could very well be something that could be used as propaganda, continued propaganda, to fuel the left's narrative of Trump being the Fourth Reich commander.
And it's too late.
Yeah.
The moment it was announced they were doing it, even if they try and backpedal now, all it takes is for someone to just find anybody who's like a Trump supporter, because people are going to go. And then they're going to be like, there's, look, we just saw what happened in Portland. And right now, the craziest thing to me is that, first of all, the friend of the victim of the guy who got killed in Portland, the Trump supporter who got executed, has said law enforcement needs to handle this. Donald Trump has said law enforcement needs to handle this.
Yeah.
Trump and his supporters have won the moral high ground for now, saying that we're not, don't go out, don't retaliate. You can't have any of this street level stuff escalating, and the police will take care of it. And now you get this announcement that they're going to go down there, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's exactly what the left was hoping for. Yeah. They knew that this crazy guy who shot this dude made them look really, really bad. It's just like what happened with Andy Ngo. When they physically, beat up Andy and left him bleeding from the mouth and ears. Yeah. There was no way to ignore that story. Everybody was sharing the video. Everybody was asking about it, and the media went into a panic. Yeah. And I say the media, but many outlets, like local outlets, are fine when they cover this stuff. But a lot of these like lefty, progressive, VC-funded digital outlets were like, actually, Andy Ngo is a fascist, and
they ran with it.
But most people, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And the reason Antifa went into panic mode, and then they published that video accusing Andy Ngo of secretly organizing with white supremacists because he was walking next to them at some point.
Yeah.
The stupidest thing ever, and they weren't white supremacists anyway. They're doing that as damage control.
Yep.
Right now, you've got a video that appears to show a far leftist with a Black Lives Matter tattoo on his neck executing a Trump supporter minding his own business.
Yep.
That now if you want Trump to win, you sit back and you say, please, Trump, do something about this. But these rallies, man, I think it'll lead to propagandistic efforts of. It could theoretically be another Charlottesville, because we had, what was it, like on the 20th or the 22nd or whatever, when right wing groups and left wing groups clashed.
Yeah.
Were you there at all?
No, was not.
Where was the last place you went to?
DC was the last place that I've been to. And
Oh,
then
right on,
before
right on.
that, I was in Kenosha.
Yeah.
I was in Kenosha. Broke that story.
Kenosha's kind of chilled out though, hasn't it?
It's chilled out now, thank God, because that place was torched.
Yeah.
Literally torched, dude. Like, it's sad. When I interviewed, I was there the first night. I was there the first night. When I showed up, they were already torching everything. And then when I went back to interview some of the locals, they all kept saying the same thing. I never thought that something like this could ever happen in my home like this. And I'm like, dude, no one is safe. Nobody.
Yep.
No, you could put Black Lives Matter on your business, but if they're feeling like it that night, doesn't matter. You can even be a black person like they did in Portland the other night. They started to burn down a black-owned business.
Yep.
And it's on film.
They don't care.
They don't care. They don't care.
And you could be a random person walking down the street, and they could just look at you and yell. So there's a video from Germany. There's a reporter I know. He's just a reporter. And someone pointed at him and yelled, Nazi Schweinhund. I think that's the word. I don't speak German. Nazi pig.
Yeah.
And they just beat him up.
Yep.
And they grabbed his camera from him. And he's like, I have no idea what's happening. And they're screaming, you're a Nazi. And he's like, I'm an American journalist. I have no idea what's happening. And then someone intervened. He eventually, he put his hands up and started saying, no, I'm not a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. And then someone convinced the other guy to give his camera back. And then they were like, leave.
Yeah.
All it takes is if you see the mob of Antifa in any location, if someone points at you and says Nazi, they'll start running and screaming towards you, and they will beat the crap out of you. They will burn your car down. They will flip your car over. They don't care.
Yep.
They don't know or care.
Yep. If you're not in a group of people, if they are outnumbering you, that's definitely going to happen to you. I just want to give an example to people of how insane they are. I was in LA. I was documenting a protest, a gathering. It was the Trump supporters and Antifa. I was standing with Antifa and I was recording them. They were screaming and they were yelling out, Nazi scum, you're all Nazis, to Trump supporting Jews with Star of David flags.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know that's not a surprise to you.
No, I know.
But people that are listening, it's not that they do believe that, but it's gotten to the point where it's just a smear tactic to have an excuse to go and hurt somebody.
You ever watch The Simpsons? Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah.
You ever see the episode
South Park, all of it.
From back in the day where Homer wants to go to clown college? Yeah. So he's driving to work and he sees his billboard and it's like the Krusty the Clown college and and then he's in the nuclear reactor and then the alarm goes off. Yeah. There's like a fire and the door opens and the guys roll in, but he sees them as clowns dancing. Like that's what it reminds me of, with just like how insane it's all becomes. They don't see you, like you're standing there and you're holding the flag up, and it's like a Star of David, and it's like, a bunch of Jewish people. But to them, they see a bunch of Nazis, goose stepping down the street, and they're like, they're everywhere. Yeah. And so there's a meme. It's really funny. It's like, if your side is claiming that this woman is a white supremacist and this man is a Nazi, then you've been brainwashed, and it's a picture of Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro. It's like, you have a black woman, she's not a white supremacist. Yeah. You have an Orthodox Jewish man, he's not a Nazi. Yeah. And the crazy thing to me too, especially about Ben Shapiro, is how he was the biggest target of like anti-Semites, according to the ADL. They still keep saying it. Yep. They don't know what they're saying. But you know what really does get scary about it? These people in Kenosha. I was reading a story from the New York Times talking about locals coming out and saying they were not going to vote for Trump. One guy said he was on the fence and didn't care much for politics. And now that all this has happened, he's like, I never thought this would come here. I can't believe it. Yep. But now the questions they're asking are, where are the Democratic governors and mayors to do anything about it? And so that they're starting to consider Trump for this.
Yep.
The riots have definitely helped Trump. What's really fascinating to me is,
I mean, pause right there. Remember the article we wrote, or the article we read
together.
We wrote together.
Yeah, the article we read.
nice, yeah.
Tim Pool and Drew Hernandez.
Was it the crybaby?
The article about the $250 million, the investigations,
exactly.
right? Imagine you in Kenosha right now. Your business was just torched to the ground, and you read that, and you're thinking to yourself, where are the Democratic leaders? What do you want right now? I want that investigation. I want to know where these people are. I want to know what's going on. I want to know why they're not doing anything. And this is kind of weird. I'm going to put this out there. Day one, I was there, Kenosha, right? Broke it. I went from Chicago. I took like an Uber. It was like a $250 Uber.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mr. Uncle Pennybags.
It was
over here, man.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
You know. Took the Uber, showed up, everything's on fire, whatever. Covered it. My internet was fine.
Yeah.
2 days later, internet is just horrible.
Were there more people?
There were more people.
That's
But the biggest complaint was even from some of the locals that even their own phone lines and some of their TV was kind of like, things went down. It was really weird.
that is interesting. The landline stuff shouldn't. But you know, I always try and tell people, the government and the state, they don't want internet to go down. They actually bring in mobile trucks. Mm-hmm. So they do this all over the world. When I was in Turkey during the Gezi Park protests, they stationed mobile cell towers around the park.
Wow.
So that they could have an increased, carrying capacity for all the different cell phones. Mm-hmm. And it's really simple why they do this. Yeah. They want to spy on you. Mm. So if the extremists are going out and they're like, we're going to go burn stuff. Yeah. The cops are like, okay, if the phone networks get jammed up, we're not going to know what they're talking about. So make sure we can strengthen this network. Yeah. And then they spy on all these people. Yep.
Definitely a possibility. Definitely a possibility. But the landline thing was kind of weird.
That is true.
The locals were like, "What is going on with this? We don't understand." Some of the power was cut. It was really bizarre.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what, man? I had a lot of people. I hear it all the time. I've been talking about the potential for civil war for quite some time, and it's look. I apologize to people who are like, Tim's talking about it again. I mean, it's just look. We're talking about Trump defunding cities. Yeah. Do you know what this leads to if he strips them of their resources? Like, there's going to be tensions between state and federal level. We've already heard from these Democrat Never Trump war games that they would rather have the West Coast secede from the Union than allow Trump to win. It's getting that insane. Yep. But you've got regular people that don't realize what's happening around this country and think they can just ignore it. And then it comes to Kenosha. So listen, what people don't get, first and foremost, they're coming from out of town. Mm-hmm. Not every single one of them. But there are crazy people in your town, no matter how small it is. Maybe it's a small percentage, but there's some of them. And if something kicks off, they will drive across the country to get there. So like, we had, you know that Riot Kitchen thing, that truck. It's like they provide food and snacks or whatever.
Riot Ribs, R.I.P.
Yeah, they're in Portland and Seattle, and then they're in Kenosha, and then they're in D.C. Yeah, they will bring supplies and resources and people to your small town. Yep. Have you followed Michael Tracy's reporting on the riots? Mm-hmm. He went to a bunch of small towns most people don't talk about that got no coverage, and he showed all the rioting that hit these tiny towns. Wow. Yeah. Yep. I actually was really surprised to find that out when so Michael Tracy, for those unfamiliar, is a journalist, and he drove in a car to small town USA and found businesses boarded up, spray painting Black Lives Matter, please don't hurt us. And the fascinating thing about it is there are people in every town who will go out and just destroy things. Mm-hmm. It's a crazy scenario, but
see, but here's the thing, Tim, is, and I got to say this is not normal. Right. It's not normal to, have to plead and beg for mercy and board up your business and put Black Lives Matter on your business. And as it's like, you remember in the Bible, like the book of Exodus, right? When the angel of death,
been a long time,
the angel of death,
we talk
right?
about this, yeah.
The Passover,
yeah,
the Passover, right? The angel of death,
you mark the door, yeah.
And Moses told him, just put blood on your doorstep and you'll be safe. Like, that's literally Black Lives Matter right now, but like the opposite. It's definitely not God.
But no,
it's gonna protect you, but it's not normal. It's
God gave you a guarantee. Mm-hmm. In the Bible, they were spared. Yeah, there's no guarantee please don't hurt me in my building.
They're trying,
dude. Have you been? You've been to Berkeley, yeah? Mm-hmm. Have you seen how the businesses all around the university have signs in their windows Those are basically them begging for
Yeah.
like safety and security.
Yeah, we've heard stories of people talking with some of the employees, and they'll ask them, "Hey, what's up with like all the BLM, oh, we don't really believe that. That's just to protect our building."
Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of people in the area who do believe it.
Yeah.
But there's some businesses that are just like, oh, it's that or a bullet in the head. You know what I mean?
But it's not normal. Like, why are we living like that? Why are we living in fear? There should never be a point where we live in fear of any political organization. Right now, I think people are extremely fed up, whether left or right. There should never be an organization or a group of people that has such power and intimidation over human beings. And I think right now people need to condemn it, regardless of skin color. Just because they're black people, and I could say this because I'm a person of color, just because they're black people doesn't give them a pass to commit criminal activity and intimidate anybody.
But they're white people.
There are
They're
as well.
overwhelmingly
There
white
are,
people.
but Black Lives Matter gets a huge pass because they're minorities.
Except
And then Antifa will infiltrate them, right? You see this on Antifa literature all the time. Whenever they post a flyer, we're going to gather in this park. We're going to gather in this park. What's on it? Black Lives Matter.
Absolutely. What are they paying? That's why I've repeatedly said it is not.
And there's only
Antifa.
like 3 black people that show up.
Right.
Yes.
It is not Antifa. Stop calling it Antifa. Call them what they are, Black Lives Matter rioters.
Yeah.
Because when the looting happened in Chicago, what happened the next day? Black Lives Matter came out and said it was a good thing. It was reparations.
Reparations.
What are they screaming as they march down the street in Oakland when they chant death to America? Also Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
They have used that as a shield, and no one in mainstream politics has been willing to call them out.
It's time.
So they've taken that. But what's interesting is we have several polls coming out showing Donald Trump has a very, very large amount of support from black voters.
Oh, for sure.
Between some are saying it's around 20, some are saying it's high 30s.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rasmussen even one point had it like 40%.
Mm-hmm.
You see these viral videos where you have black people saying they want to vote for Trump, they support him. Those people are attacked and demonized. Mm-hmm. Candace Owens is accused of being a white supremacist and all this awful stuff. You can disagree with her opinions, and you can not like her personally, but to insult her based on racial issues to me is disgusting.
Dude, when you have Joe Biden jumping up on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne, one of the most influential black radio commentators of our generation, and you have Joe Biden jumping up there and telling all of black America, hey, if you can't intellectually choose between me or the other guy, then you ain't black. And you guys want to sit here, not you guys, but the Democrat Party, you guys want to sit here and wonder why and scratch your heads as to why millions of black people don't want to vote for you guys right now?
Seriously.
People are waking up to the reality that you lie about our communities, you lie about minorities, you literally use us as political pawns. You only talk to us. We're like a booty call. That's what minorities.
That's a good one, dude.
Minorities are a booty call to the Democrat Party, and you only call us when you need something, when it's late at night, late in the game, and you need our votes, and you want to get it in.
Yep.
That's a really
That's
good
it.
point.
That's
dude.
who you are. That's what they do. And people, more minorities that are listening to me right now, this is who you are to them. That's it. You're just a number. You're just a number and a vote. They do nothing for our communities. They've done nothing for our communities. Donald Trump has helped more black people than Joe Biden has. And Joe Biden has been in politics for decades.
Nearly 50 years.
Literally, Donald Trump has not enslaved or imprisoned nearly as many black people as Joe Biden has.
Nearly as many. I think the big criticism Trump has is the Central Park 5.
Right.
Joe Biden wrote the crime bill in 1994.
Exactly.
And Joe Biden has said a whole bunch of things that I can't repeat because this is YouTube and I don't want to get banned.
If we repeat some of Joe Biden's rhetoric on YouTube, Tim Pool gets banned.
Yep.
Tim
joke.
Pool gets a
Straight
strike.
No joke.
Do you guys not understand that? Like, if we literally recite some of the things that Joe Biden has said, we could get a strike right now. Like, try and wrap your mind around
many
that.
other Democrats in the past 20 years too.
Yep.
I'm not going to say their names because I don't want to rehash out of subject, but there's a lot of people. I look at the Republican Party and I don't care for them at all.
No, and people that's the funny thing. I was talking about this earlier with the girls. Like, a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, you're a hardcore right winger and this and that." I'm like, dude, I have a lot of issues with the Republican Party. I have a lot of issues with the RNC. Like, we've tried to do work with them. We've tried to do like Hispanic outreach, and they just kind of like don't really take us seriously sometimes. And I have a lot of issues, and people always accuse me. And I've had people even on Twitter, they'll message me, "You white supremacist, right wing, alt right." I'm like, hey, number one, I'm Hispanic. Number two, my last name ends with Z. Number three, I have some issues with the Republican Party. And they're like, you're just a liar. This is propaganda. Right. And I'm like, hey, you know, and I've had like hour-long DM conversations, Tim, with some crazy communist anarchists, literally just going back and forth. And it'll get to the point where I'm just like, hey, you're really angry and you sound really like lonely. Like it sounds like you need a friend. Like, I'll be your friend. And they're like, you're being so weird right now. Why are you being so weird? This is really weird. You're really weird. What are you doing this for? And I'm like, they're like, why are you being so nice? I'm like, maybe because because I am a nice guy, and I love people, and you have this weird preconceived notion about me, and like it even gets to the point where I'll be like, you know, hashtag Woody and Buzz, you got a friend in me, and they'll be like, don't you say anything like that. You're just being weird right now. You're being a liar. You're an alt-right liar. I'm like, dude, I'll be your friend. Trust me. I don't even like Toy Story. Actually, and then they'll be like, you know what? I kind of like Woody. This is what they'll say. I kind of like Woody. And I'm like, we have something in common.
Yeah.
We have, like, I have something in common with a communist. We both like Toy Story.
That's right.
And it's like,
that's a starting point, man.
I've had hour-long conversations with some of these people in DMs with Twitter. And it's just, they're so programmed.
Totally, dude.
They're so programmed. But when they finally get to know you, they're like, this is weird.
You know, I do some similar things when people post on my Facebook. I had somebody come at me, and this is a common thing I do. And you go for the emotion in a positive way, not a negative way. For example, I'll get somebody saying, "You're a moron. You're so stupid," and my response is just, I was like, "Dude, like, why are you being so mean, man?" Yeah. And then their response is, "Well, I'm just sick and tired of it." Like, I hear you, bro. I'm sorry that you feel that way. I just wish we didn't have to be so mean to each other. People often chill out real quick. I was talking to one person who just came in my comments and they were screaming and spitting and yelling, and I was like, dude, you used to smile. What happened? And that snapped them in 2 seconds, and they're just like, bro, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, we don't got to yell at each other, man. I'm here. I'm listening. Yep. I'm not a crazy guy in the street corner screaming. I'm just sitting here on Facebook, man, like you are. Dude, I didn't come on your page screaming.
Like, do you remember how it was like in the 90s and like the early 2000s? Do you remember when the way YouTube was in the early 2000s and the kind of videos that were on YouTube?
What, just like thumbnails of bikini girls?
Just the way of the culture, right? Like guys like George Lopez, total hardcore SJW right now. Yeah. He got into his career. He blew up based off of like racist jokes.
Oh yeah, dude. He has the whole segment where his his brother can't speak English.
Yes, but just think of how much we've changed, but at the same time, it's like, don't you just miss the days where racism was just like, if you're a racist, like, what are you doing? You're outdated. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, get with the times. Like,
no, they're all racist now.
Right? But it's like, it wasn't this, oh my gosh, it's a pandemic. There's a racist under every corner, and there's a white supremacist there. Even though you're Mexican, you're a white supremacist. It's like this paranoia. It's like this pandemic, but I miss the days where it was just like you're just like not cool if you're a racist. Like, get out of here. What's wrong with you?
It reminds. Let's see if it starts working again.
See if we can do it.
Hey, are we live yet? I have no idea.
They said it went down at 9:03.
Whoa.
Yeah, so if we can get it back up.
No idea.
I
think we're streaming.
occurred.
But I can't tell if...
it says it's back. Oh, it says it's back. Yes.
We are back.
Oh, yes. Woo.
Wow, what happened?
Oh, what the heck? That was weird.
What were we just talking about? It's because you said something too spicy.
No.
You started talking about Trump vote.
Not even. It was great. I was loving it.
We're back? It looks like we're back.
Yes.
All right, so we're back.
YouTube overlords, I repent. No, I'm just totally
so sorry.
kidding.
It's all Drew's fault.
So we somehow
I don't want to get Tim Pool banned, guys. I don't want to do that.
We somehow got taken off the air. Welcome to YouTube.
Yeah,
like just happened.
Back.
It's the first time that's ever happened to us before, though.
That was our intermission. We got donuts. It was
welcome
fun.
to 2020.
It was Commander Red.
Commander Red.
Oh,
Commander Red was like, "Don't make fun of me."
Welcome to the Timcast.
We're like, "Nah." The stream got taken down. What were we just talking about?
Timcast IRL, featuring Lydia.
I know.
What were we just talking about?
We were talking about how things used to be,
Funny.
where like
racism.
That's right.
Racism
wasn't paranoia. It was just like people were like, "Yeah, you're just dumb if you're a racist."
No, but I can point to Family Guy.
The Asian jokes.
Yeah. I can point to Family Guy. Seth MacFarlane is like, please, everybody, we must vote for Joe Biden. I'm like, Joe Biden's cutting deals with the far left. Mm-hmm. He's done the Bernie Sanders pact. if we go in that direction, compromise with these cultists, there won't be a Family Guy anymore. I guess these people have chosen.
South Park will be gone. You know, I mean, like Star Wars, right? Like, I'm such a huge Star Wars fan. And
I'm so sorry.
I know, right? I'm sorry for your loss.
The woke culture that destroyed Star Wars just... I can never get over The Last Jedi. I'm on that side. I haven't watched it since it came out. The night I watched that and all the woke culture, I'm just like, why? Star Wars isn't about woke culture. Star Wars is about family, drama, things going on. Luke had daddy issues. Anakin, good versus evil. Leia, she kissed her brother.
Yeah,
I guess
weird.
people could relate to that, I guess. But what about this weird woke stuff that's all of a sudden, I'm like, why did you do this to Star Wars? Sometimes I cry. I'm just kidding.
I don't.
But I really was pissed.
I don't think The Last Jedi got super woke. A lot of people say that. I'm like, sure, they had
dude with the purple hair.
Yeah. But that's
dude,
one
come
lady,
on,
man.
Dude.
Admiral
it was
Gender
all
Studies
over the place. Like women were dominating. They had Poe look like a moron. You know,
it was weird.
It was weird, bro. And it just wasn't good. Like they demeaned all the men. Luke Skywalker was just a nobody.
Look at we've talked about this a million times back when pop culture still existed.
Mm-hmm.
Now everything's just, Antifa and Trump. But
let's talk pop culture, dude. Everything's invaded right now. Everything.
So a really good example of what counters the Last Jedi is Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. In Wonder Woman, the men were badass, and so was she, and so were the Amazons. Mm-hmm. It was a bunch of heroic people of all different types.
Yep.
That's all that mattered. Mm-hmm. And then you look at...
And it was a good movie.
It was.
Like John Boyega, he complains, I think my character wasn't that well because, I'm black, right? I'm like, no, it's because it's because the screenwriters suck. It's because the movie, the story just was not great. It wasn't good. It's not because the color of your skin.
Don't take it personal, dude.
I got to tell you, man, I've watched a bunch of movies where I'm just like, I don't understand why this is the direction they went in. So I just watched the new Bill and Ted. Mm-hmm. Have you seen the new Bill and Ted?
Not yet.
And I'm kind of like, they almost got me mad. So I can't spoil the movie because I did like it.
Spoiler alert.
And Keanu Reeves is awesome.
He's always awesome.
And it was Bill and Ted 3, and it was funny.
Yeah.
I don't think it was as good as the first two because I think it was like a nostalgia thing. I don't want to spoil it, but they do dive into SJW. I can't say what it is because the movie just came out. But they it looks like they're nose diving, and I'm like, you can't be serious. And they pull it back, and I'm like, all right, that's okay, I guess. Because I'll just put it this way, it almost negates like retcons the original movies.
Yeah.
Bill, you're familiar with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they added a change, and I'm just like, don't you do it? Don't you? They kind of did it.
And I think millennials will relate to this. It's like we love authentic things. I just love anything that's authentic. If it's handmade, whatever. If it's made digitally, but you made it, like I love it. And it's like the stories nowadays, they're not authentic. They're engineered. Even George Lucas hit on this. Like all of the stories, all Hollywood, everything's engineered. It's pre-planned just for ratings, just for the box office. How much money is it going to make? We make decisions based off of money. And that's what happened to Star Wars. And it's like, why can't I just have an authentic, amazing story that uplifts my soul and doesn't make me feel bad for not being not woke enough? Like it's like this always.
Hey.
I'm being guilt tripped always in every movie, every TV, every podcast, everything that's in woke culture. It's like, you're not woke enough, so you need to be more woke. And if you're not going to be woke enough, then you're a racist. And it's like, why is that our media now? Why is that Hollywood?
That's cultural Antifa. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Cultural Marxism.
So, I mean, I don't want to call it that. Mm-hmm. What is that? What is that school of thought that talks about? It's the something school. I don't remember. I look at this as you've got the physical and the more abstract. Mm-hmm. In the physical world, you have far leftists going around burning things down, destroying things, screaming, and they're like Commander Red falling into the fetal position.
Frankfurt School.
Sorry,
you put me on the spot there. I forgot what state it was.
And then you have in the cultural spaces, they're burning down and destroying cultural institutions and icons and our social norms. I look at the example at my go-to. I think I already referenced it earlier. Is Into the Spider-Verse. Mm-hmm. You saw that movie, right? It's relatable. I'm not a Afro-Latino kid growing up in the city, but he's a regular kid going through things where I'm just like, I can understand this. And I think about these movies that do really bad, like The Last Jedi. Think about sitting around with your friends, male and female, black and white, Asian, Mexican, whatever, Latino, And you're like, I don't know anybody who acts like that. Like the men in, like the dudes I hang out with aren't bumbling morons who hate women.
Yeah.
Dude, I had
Exactly.
I've had an SJW like that I worked with ask me how many of my male friends are okay with rape. They think this way. Then they make movies based off of these psychotic assumptions. Yeah. Like, have you ever met a man and like hung out with them? It's like, I'm sitting here, I'm a dude, I'm in front of you. What makes you think I would feel that? So that's insane to ask.
Yep.
But they read these things online, they read these garbage articles, they get these lectures, and then they create this worldview that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like when we're talking about propaganda earlier with like Antifa, they live in this world that's been manufactured. It's almost like, imagine if people were running around with Harry Potter robes and flicking wands at people, screaming Voldemort was coming.
Yep.
That's the same thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, because that's their ideology, and they've bought into the lie that Donald Trump is the leader of the oncoming Fourth Reich. Like, so people, no, I want people to understand, like, these people honestly believe. They honestly believe.
I do believe they truly believe it.
They do believe that they're fascists. They believe Donald Trump is a fascist. They believe the Fourth Reich is coming. This is why they do what they do. So they're always on the offense. They're always on the offense because of that. And that's why they do what they do. And people need to understand, like, why? You know, like you described earlier, why? What do you mean they'll just run up to someone, accuse them to be a Nazi and just beat them up? Because their ideology has trained them to believe that there's an enemy out there that wants to put them in gulags. There's an enemy out there that
they
wants
want
to
to do the
enslave them,
gulags.
put them in
Not us.
concentration. Exactly.
They're projecting on that one.
They are history, right? Stalin. Whenever communists would subvert another country, when they would target another country, who would the communists pose as in that country? Anti-fascists.
Right.
And they would do that. They would claim to be the very thing that they are defending against. Or they are trying to produce.
I'm not a historian, but I was reading an article on the internet, which, you know, makes me an
there.
expert essentially. Yeah. You're familiar with the fascists? Mm-hmm. That you know what it is? Can you describe it?
Like what? Like
the fascists, like what it is. The little it's. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm trying to make a point by highlighting things. But I'll just throw it to you.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Can you explain?
So
you want to describe it?
Fascies,
whatever it
is like a bundle of sticks, and they're considered stronger when they're together, I guess, or something.
So I was reading an article about the symbolism, and so the fascists is it's a bunch of it's a weapon with like a axe blade and a bunch of sticks strapped together. All of those together make it strong. And do you know what the revolution fist is? Do you know why they hold it forward so you can see it? They don't raise their fist like this to you. They turn their fist like that. So you can see the fingers together make a strong fist. It's very, very similar. It's an authoritarian collectivist symbol. So I'll tell you, when I see people walking up to patrons at a diner and they're all raising the fist into their faces and screaming, "Salute us," I'll tell you what that reminds me of. And it's not going to make me think Trump is the fascist.
Yeah, it's not good.
No, that's the lie. They're posing. They are posing as to what they're going to implement, and they accuse their enemy as being who they are, so you don't see it coming.
And that is straight out of Alinsky, right? Yeah.
Have you seen the book In Defense of Looting? Back during Ferguson, when they were looting all the stores and you know, burning everything down. Somebody wrote an article because there was a lot of press coming out saying all this looting and rioting and destruction is bad, especially in a community like Ferguson, that it's a black community, and part of it, not all of it, some part of Ferguson was actually really, really wealthy, but it was impoverished black homes. By burning and destroying it down, there was the obvious criticism. You're actually hurting the black community. Wow. So some far leftists wrote an article called In Defense of Looting. And they said that it was, you know, stealing back from the oppressors and all this other garbage nonsense. It wasn't true because the locals hated the looting. And they were like, you burned down our hair supply store. Like there was a salon and like a hair supply where people would go to get things for their hair, to get their hair done and stuff. They burned it down. And then you hear the next lie is, but they have insurance. And the insurance does not cover this stuff. In in the Twin Cities, there's a story coming out now where apparently insurance only covers up to $25,000 of rubble removal, and the total cost was like $140K for some buildings. So they're out. They can't afford to pay $115K back for the removal So they're just done. They walk away.
It makes sense. Like from a Marxist standpoint, you know, if you believe that capitalism is evil, if you believe that the free market is evil, if you believe that private property is like an abomination to humanity, it makes sense to me that you have a bunch of people out here that are willing to torch buildings in the name of their ideology. So to me, it just makes total sense.
Yeah, any building. Doesn't matter whose.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't. To me, if I try and think like that, I'm like, dude, if I'm a Marxist and I don't believe any of that, then I think that it's evil, then it makes total sense that these people are running around burning anything they can get their hands on.
So if these people are all crazy, violent, you get scared when you go down there and you know that you're going to, but let me get specific, not just cover this, but you've actually ridden in vehicles with them. You've actually hung out with them.
Yep, I've been physically assaulted. They tried to rip my mask off, rip my helmet off. I'm more worried about the mentally ill people that are out there. They are out there. There's people that are mentally ill. They're mentally unstable. You can see it. You can hear it. And you could hear them making threats to the police too. Like they'll be like, I have a knife and I'm not afraid to use it. I have a knife and I'm not afraid to use it. The unpredictable aspect of that is what worries me the most. The strategic stuff, I have intel. I know how they move. I know how they work. I've been briefed on certain things, but it's the unpredictable people that's dangerous, because someone could just come out of nowhere and not even think things through. Like there's not even a reason. Like you said earlier, you know, they come up, they could stab you, they could shoot you. That's kind of what is got me looking on my six when I'm out there.
I mean, like the dude in Portland doesn't seem to be all with it. Like the guy who killed that Trump supporter. Like easily manipulated, unwell. You take some of these people who have built this worldview where they're screaming Nazi all over, they're like, and you can easily manipulate them and doing whatever you want. Yeah. This is it. It's the only way. He's the one right here. Yeah.
Useful
bang, bang.
Idiots. Useful idiots.
I mean, but it's beyond idiot. You know, like a useful idiot. You get some guy who doesn't realize that the railroad he's building is going to be used for concentration camps or something.
Exactly.
So,
but these people are usefully mentally ill to the far left. Yeah.
So an example of a useful idiot is something that Andy called out earlier today, and I was like, he's dropping some serious shade, because there was a journalist who was sitting there in Portland. He was like, look, this whole city's on fire, and there's like people walking by in the park. He's like, I was like, okay, first of all, so that's Trump's America? Is this what we're referring to again? Just checking. But Andy made the point that Antifa is depending on people who are useful idiots, like this guy. So he's not someone who's actively engaged. He's just running, you know, he's running interference for them. He's covering for them.
Yep. He hears his friends in the office saying Antifa's not that bad, and then he laughs and says, oh, look at this, it's a park. And when I saw a lot of these posts are going around where they're like, they claim Portland is burning, but like I'm here eating a cheeseburger and everything's okay. That's how it is in most conflict. Yeah. Like you realize like you're not going to walk into a civil unrest, urban conflict, or civil war and people just are all dead. Like I'm sure there's places where that's happened. You know, a bomb gets dropped or something. But if you realize people have to keep eating. Yep. So they have to keep working, and food has to keep shipping, and it means trucks are still driving, and it means you know one of the craziest things about this narrative too is during the height of the Syrian civil war, the Syrian tourism board was still advertising for nightlife in Damascus. Wow. We were trying to do it. It was back when I was at Vice. We were trying to do a documentary on it, and I guess they said it was in poor taste or something. And I was like, dude, it's not about going and partying and laughing at the misery. It's going there and showing that there are people partying on rooftops with like music and like miles away it's explosions and like sarin gas attacks. Like it's an example of how life goes on. Now people are scared, people are worried, there are checkpoints, there's terrorists, all this stuff is happening, but they're still dancing to like that Hot Club remix, you know? But these useful idiots.
Well, because there's people that want nothing to do with it. You know, like in Portland, there are people that want nothing to do with this. They're not interested in politics. They just want to be successful, live the American dream, put someone in office that's going to protect them and help them thrive and their babies and their future. And these are the people, like you said, that want to continue on to live their lives. And it's just our political arena right now is like you're like forced to get involved because there's death threats being made. You know, the country's on the line, the Constitution's on the line. There's so much freedom and liberty that's on the line right now. And even people that are traditional liberals, people that have been on the left, they're identifying it's not the right. It's not the right that has it right. This is about good and evil now. This is about truth and lies. And this is about making sure that our constitutional freedoms are intact, because if they're not, we have no future. We have no future if this all falls and burns.
You know what I think it is?
Or tonight.
The people who are aligned with like Antifa on the left and the people who would vote for Joe Biden, they think, first of all, they have no idea what's really going on. Because I think if any of them spent any amount of time researching, watching videos, and watching a Trump speech, they'd be like, hey, wait a minute, that wasn't true.
Yep.
And that would change their view. All they know is things are scary and they're being threatened. And so they've built this worldview. But if they change that, it'll take a lot of work and it'll increase their risk. And they don't want to do that. That's why you have that bug-eyed woman screaming at the black woman about how she's the only one who can stop racism or whatever. It's I guess it's almost hysterical. It's like a hysteria among many of these people.
Yeah.
So you get the average person who's watched a YouTube video, who reads the news, and they're going to have a more moderate view of things. That's one thing we talk about, like why I'm hopeful having so many people watch shows like this and listening to me, because I'm just kind of like, I think the whole thing is, dude, chill. I think Flecka's. He had a great line way back when that's like stuck with me. Trump's not that bad. He's like asking people like, hey, Trump's kind of bad, right? And they're like, yeah, but he's not that bad, right? Yeah. And then people would laugh and be like, yeah, he's not that bad. I'm like, that's an amazing line to explain to people. Chill, dude. Trump isn't dropping nukes. He's not. There's no camps. Like, this stuff's made up. Or if it did exist, it was like Obama was doing these things too. And we need to reform this stuff. But Trump is not the boogeyman. They think he is.
But that's why I told you earlier, Tim. I don't think you realize what you mean to people.
Oh yeah.
Because you're so in the middle, where people can relate to you on so many levels. But what's important about that, Tim, is you're like Anakin Skywalker, bro.
Like Darth Vader now.
You're gonna bring balance to the Force.
That's not a good thing,
But you just got to make sure that you don't go towards the dark side.
Yeah,
There
you go.
I'm not saying you are Anakin. I said you're like Anakin, right? And I'm being serious. I'm being dead serious right now. In the culture, what you mean right now, what this show means right now, is to bring balance to everyone.
You're saying all I got to do is kill a bunch of kids and I'll get supreme power?
Oh, they're gonna cut that up. That's headline news, bro.
Already.
That's headline news.
Oh, please, it's a Star Wars.
Don't slaughter the Padawans, Tim.
That's right. Come on, Tim.
Okay, don't slaughter the Padawans.
I will not let
be
him.
what Anakin was meant to be, Tim.
No, Anakin was meant to destroy the Jedi.
Yeah.
That what was it? Don't they say this in the Revenge of the Sith, that perhaps they misread the prophecy? He was going to bring balance to the Force by getting rid of almost every Jedi.
He's in the middle.
Oh, snap.
No, because there were only 2 Sith and there were thousands of Jedi. Balance meant
the rule of 2.
Yeah, balance meant you can't create more Sith. You can only get rid of Jedi.
Yep.
And he did. Well, the Emperor did.
Yep.
So let me ask you, man. You're riding in a car with these Antifa people. What is it like? Are they normal people? Are they like, you want Taco Bell, bro? And you're like, yeah, let me get it in number 2.
Well,
or are they screaming like, when we get to Taco Bell, man, I'm going to punch Trump. Oh, man.
They're very calm and collective before they're going to go and riot.
Yeah.
When I was in the car, they're like, you good, bro? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. They're like, where's everyone at? I'm like, oh, they're over on that other street. Like, all right, let's go. And they're just very calm. They're very collected. But whenever they see police, it's like
their brains break.
Just like, they go like Super Saiyan 3, like literally Super Saiyan 3.
How many people get that reference?
I'm sure
Tim does.
I'm sure thousands of people get that reference, dude. Like, they completely change.
Their hair grows.
Turns
gold like yours.
It turns gold. And, I'm sorry to my viewers about the gold hair. There's a reason for it. I can't tell you why, okay?
But
it's a secret.
You're going Super
Saiyan,
Saiyan. It's a whole thing.
But they do. They do. They literally just change. They change into these crazy people because they're emboldened when they're in groups and they see police officers and it just sets them off. And it's like they have like these, they like have orgasms, dude. Like when they see it and when they're ready to just go in on it, that's what they do. Like they just love it too much.
It gives them a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before. I have a segment about it.
This is why they want to kill me, dude. The stuff I'm telling you guys tonight is like
all these state secrets.
It's totally true, but I'm saying it in a way that's comical. But you guys need to take it serious too, because there's a reason why they're being they're investigated. There's a reason. They are dangerous.
I mean, yeah. Look, we got Commander Red curling in the fetal position and crying when he gets arrested. Why are they releasing his flame? Yeah.
Yeah, even though he had a flamethrower.
I'll tell you, man, it's funny. We laugh at this Commander Red guy, but they let him go.
Yeah.
They're like, he jumped bail. Let's bail him out again.
Cool.
How does and for a lower number? No wonder this stuff keeps happening. Do you see what they just did with the state police in Oregon? They deputized them federally.
Wow.
You know what that means? You get arrested by a state trooper in Oregon, it goes to the federal attorneys.
There you go.
You're getting locked up.
Yeah.
Dude, people don't realize this, man.
See, but that's the thing is we've gotten so far away in our culture from consequence and accountability, right? Where people, when they don't see consequence, they're not held accountable. If they know that there will be no consequence to any kind of action, right? Whether it's digital, whether it's in the real world, whatever it is, that emboldens me to go and do something. Because if I'm Antifa, I'm living in my mom's basement, right? And I'm collecting those Trump stimulus checks. That's probably what's like funding a lot of these guys. If I'm living like that and I'm now emboldened, if I know if I go out there and I could throw a Molotov cocktail at a courthouse and I'm going to get a slap on the wrist, they'll probably let me out within the next 2 hours.
Yep.
I'm going to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
They're bored. There's no purpose anymore, right? Think about the European colonists who were all like, yo, let's get on this boat and then spend 3 months at sea where a good portion of people will die and we'll just get chucked overboard. And then when we finally make it to that shore, there's nothing there. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, and they high five and they bring their families. Yeah. I'm like, wow.
People are crazy.
It's crazy. The amount of risk. Dude, you're going to die. Dude, you know what's crazy to me is I was reading when I was at Glenn Beck's studio. He has these really old newspapers mounted on the wall, and one of them talks about how there's a guy who was outside of a bar, like a cigar bar or something, and some random dude walked up, put a gun in his chest, and pulled the trigger. Wow. And I just like for no reason, it was like an old story from the 1800s, and I'm like, a lot of these things still kind of happen today, especially in Chicago, like random shootings. But when I look back, a lot of this old stuff, man, people were really willy-nilly with their lives. Like for me, I'm very much like, I've grown quite fond of living. I'd like to make sure that carries on. But I read these stories about people who are like, we're going to get on this boat. We're going to be gone for 3 months, likely starve or die of dehydration, maybe get scurvy. And then those of us that make it have nothing but harsh realities of no food. That was like, people did it. Mm-hmm. And they came to North America. Some people did bad stuff. A lot of people did bad stuff. And then they started building things. Today, nobody wants to do that. Yeah. So these Antifa types have no purpose. Yeah. In their minds, they have this vision. Here's what I imagine. It's, imagine, 100 years. People don't realize about the colonial era, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. 1492, Columbus sails the ocean blue. It was hundreds of years of settlement in North America. It was a really, really, really long time before there was the American Revolution and, this country was formed. Yep. But I have to imagine there's somebody sitting in London in like 16 something or maybe like early 1700s being like, man, this image of making it across the ocean, it's a dangerous journey, it's difficult, it's expensive, and you're going to be an indentured servant. You're imagining this great open world of endless freedom and discovery, just swaths of land, and people haven't even made it to the other side of the continent yet. Mm-hmm. You're like, all this discovery waiting there for me. It's a beautiful utopian view of adventure and life and opportunity. And so they take that risk. Yeah. They get on that boat. They make it. Today, you've got a bunch of Antifa sitting in their mom's basements, and I'm purposely being, disrespectful, and they're imagining in their heads that great journey is tearing down the government and creating the communist utopia. Yep. But there is no country to go to. There is no communist utopia. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you get somebody sitting in there, in the 1700s in London being like, I want to make it to Atlantis. You're like, bro, if you get on that boat looking for Atlantis, you're going to die because there's no Atlantis. Yeah. And then who knows where you'll end up. Mm-hmm. You know what ends up happening? You get on a boat right now looking for Atlantis, you're going to run out of food, and you're going to end up if you get lucky enough, on a deserted island, running out of resources, and life's going to suck. Mm-hmm. That's what the far left is doing. Yeah. They think they're driving us towards the great lost city of Atlantis, this beautiful utopia. Instead, they're driving everything into a crater where we're all going to suffer.
Yeah, and that's history repeating itself.
Yeah.
Because it's happened once, it's happened twice, it's happened multiple times in history. But right now what's different is the United States of America and our constitutional republic is being used against itself.
It is.
Very, very strategically and very, very successfully. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people will say, well, it's my First Amendment right to, stand outside and call for, the murder of Trump supporters. That's where we're going right now.
And it's not.
And it's not, but that's where we are right now in 2020.
You see what the New York Times ran a story about a reporter who left the Kenosha News because he was upset the way they framed a story about a man issuing threats at a peaceful protest. That's what they said. The guy at the peaceful protest was the guy who said, if they take one of ours, we take one of theirs.
Wow.
He was threatening to kill people and inciting people to kill. And the New York Times called that a peaceful protest.
Isn't that a gang line?
I guess.
If they take one of ours,
Yeah.
we take two of theirs.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't figure this one out. A peaceful protest. How would you describe a peaceful protest?
Well, I think according to the First Amendment, we have the First Amendment right to peacefully protest and to express our grievances, right? To the federal government, local government.
It says peaceably assemble.
Peacefully
it
assemble.
It doesn't say anything else.
Peacefully assemble, right?
Yeah, Regis of grievances is a separate clause.
Yeah. So, but together, that's kind of what the culture of American protesting is, right? That's kind of where we derive from it.
But describe.
I would say a group of people, right, that are rallying, that are not out to commit arson or loot or commit any kind of violence, that want to express their First Amendment right of free speech, to express what they want to say. Obviously, if it's not inciting violence, murder, killing people, anything like that, that is obviously strategic, that's planned, that's kind of like in a location where, you know, it's not going to turn into something violent.
Well,
where people are going to get killed.
How about this? It's a bunch of ladies with pussy hats walking around Washington, D.C., waving little signs, and then they go home. Mm-hmm. Okay, peaceful protest, right?
Yep.
How would you describe a riot?
A riot is when violence begins to take over, where people are completely unhinged and they're ready to commit arson. They're ready to vandalize. They're ready. In the name of a message, they surrender speech and they move to violent action.
So they're smashing things, starting fires, maybe rocks being thrown. Okay, what would you call it if a group of people are rallying while calling for the death of their enemies?
I would call that...
It's not a riot.
I would call that ISIS.
It's not a peaceful protest.
I would call that the Taliban.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
But it's not a protest. It's not a riot. Mm-hmm. But it's not... It's like...
I would call that terrorism.
Well, so that's what they were doing in Kenosha.
Yeah.
They were rallying peacefully in the sense that they weren't burning things down, but
Yeah.
a dude literally gets up and was like, yo, we're going to kill people.
Yeah.
And so this guy was like, well, don't tell people that. He said it was one voice in a sea of other voices. I'm like, I don't care. Mm-hmm. The dude stood up and said it, and then within hours, you know, this guy got executed in Portland.
Yeah.
I lived on that street in New York where the guy said, the black supremacist said, you take one of ours, we take two of yours, and then he killed two cops. It was an Asian cop and a Latino cop. Yeah. I lived on that block. I look out my window. I'm like, there it is, right down the street. So I've heard that language before. Mm-hmm. What do we call that? What do we do? Do we just arrest that guy? Do we break up the assembly? Do we say it's an unlawful assembly because it's no longer peaceful if you're making death threats?
Yeah, I think that kind of speech isn't protected under the First Amendment.
Definitely not.
If you're calling for the murder of somebody, if you're calling for the harm of somebody, like for instance, you can't jump up in a theater and say fire. You can't.
You can actually.
You can.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I didn't know this because I used to say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Yeah.
Apparently, that got overturned.
Wow.
Yeah.
As of recent?
Oh no, long time ago.
Wow.
So a lot of people think that you can't.
Mm-hmm.
You can yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't yell go set a fire
Gotcha.
or you know
A call to action of
Yeah.
something that can put innocent people's
you
lives
can't.
in danger,
I think
right?
you can't threaten.
Gotcha.
You're going to do it. You can't tell someone to or how.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure you can. Now, obviously, there are still some restrictions. Like you can't yell bomb on a plane or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think in that regard, that theoretically, and this is one of the biggest challenges of constitutional law, a cop's just going to arrest you for disorderly conduct.
Yeah.
Like, what does that even mean, disorderly conduct?
Mm-hmm.
They want to arrest you, they can arrest you.
Yeah.
So if you're marching around waving, I guess you could sue theoretically, but disorderly is such a low tier slap on the wrist charge. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to get thrown out because they're going to be like, oh, they did nothing. You're not going to jail or anything. You got a slap on the wrist. There's no record. So it is difficult. But anyway, well, yeah, that was the point. You can, but I don't know if you want to fin.
No, they're touchy subjects. And I want to give an example as to how the First Amendment could be easily subverted in this kind of way. When you're out in Portland, right? And I'm sure you've probably dealt with this in the past. They masquerade as press. Antifa wears
Totally.
press passes. They masquerade. They hide themselves under the First Amendment. They claim to be press, but they're absolutely not. They are just agents there to get in the middle of the police. They're just there to protect and to provide cover for some of the rioters behind.
Yep.
And sometimes these press, they'll actually throw rocks. They'll throw things
Totally.
at police. They'll challenge police.
Or de-arrest.
But here's the result. The result is guys like me, guys like you, that are genuinely there to cover it. The police don't know who's who. You could be wearing a press badge. You could be wearing anything. The police don't know who's who. So I myself, I've been hit pretty hard, man.
Yep.
The cops, dude. Like I've been batoned very hard. And I don't blame the police, but that's a subversion of the First Amendment because they have no idea who's out there.
Right.
But they're successfully doing this to our Constitution. And I think that's a good example as to how it could be subverted. They're already doing it, but there's so many other things that they can do. But this is just one successful subversion of our First Amendment that Antifa does on a nightly basis.
Have you been arrested?
Not yet.
I've been.
I'm ready for it, though.
I've been tear gassed tons, pepper spray tons of times, but it's, you know, you just don't scream at cops. You don't scream in their faces. You don't insult them. You have to try and understand who these people are and what they're doing and why they're doing it. Mm-hmm. I remember I was at, I think it's Washington Square Park in New York, and there was a line of cops because they closed the park at night and kicked all the protesters out. And there was this dude screaming in the face of a cop, and I was watching him do it. And then after he like finally got tired screaming, and like I was standing around with a bunch of people, I asked him, I was like, why are you screaming at that guy? Like, why are you, you were screaming like, whose side are you on? And you know, your boss hates you and you're supporting the elites or whatever. And the guy was like, well, he needs to learn, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, do you know that guy was thinking the whole time you were yelling? I just want to go home and watch. I TiVo'd, you know, I got DVR of the game. Man, it's the you know, the Yankees played or whatever. I just want to watch that, lay back in my chair, and I'm going to crack a beer. While you're screaming, that's the only thing he's thinking. He's tuned you out. He doesn't know or care what you're talking about. It's not in his world. He's never heard this before, and he's not going to care. And he's really going to be, you know, disinterested in these future topics because you scream in his face. Yeah. I'll tell you what. You walk up to me and say, "How's it going, man? Appreciate everything you do. Thanks for being here. I'd love to chat with any of you guys whenever you have time. Have a nice day." And you will be 100 times more likely to actually have someone willing to listen, be willing to listen to you. Yep. It's like, look, you can't walk up to somebody and say something dumb, like start preaching about, you know, critical race theory or whatever. They're not going to listen to you. Mm-hmm. You're trying to understand what they're thinking to better figure out how to navigate the circumstance. So when you're in a riot and you got a bunch of cops and they're marching and yelling, move, you move. Yep. And you put your hands up and you start moving as fast as possible. And I see journalists who scream like, I got a First Amendment right. You can't tell me what to do. And then they get like shoved to the ground and they get arrested. Yeah. The cop can't hear you, dude. Yeah. There's every other cop is screaming, move, move. Mm-hmm. And they're clearing this out. There's people throwing bottles. They're trying to watch the line of people who are throwing things at them. And you're going, wah, 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 in their face. And they just throw you down. They arrest you. Yep. And then guess what? The next day you get released. The charges get dropped. They say, sorry for arresting you. You're a journalist. You shouldn't have been standing there.
Yep. Because one of the main things that the police will look for is if you are listening to instruction, because if you're not, then you're a threat in the moment, especially if you're standing in the middle of a riot between police and the rioters. Like, as a journalist, dude, there are grifters out there, Tim, you know they are. But right now in Portland, dude, I've had grifters come up to me, you know, the day after I was physically assaulted by Antifa, literally come up from behind me and start saying my name. Like, these are dudes that take selfies in front of the courthouse, not covering their face. And then the next day, they'll come up behind me and be like, hey, Drew, you can't respond to my text messages or you can't respond to me on Instagram. Like, straight grifters, dude, that raise money to go to Portland just to do this. That, and I know my buddies will side with me on this, stuff like that could get me killed. Yep. Because if Antifa's out there and like, oh, hey, Drew's right here.
Yep.
Put it on Twitter.
That's it. That's why I couldn't go anymore. Yeah. Because they would start putting up forums being like, track him down. Yep. And so even though there was a delay on my feed, they'd be like, we know where he's at. Yeah. Go find him. Yep. But the grifters, man, don't be playing games, man. Don't think like this is not a game. It's literally not a game. It's not funny. I mean, I know we joke about certain things, but if you think that you're just going to come out here and, you know, catch some clout, you better think again, man, because these people are serious. They're organized. Yeah. They're extremely organized. It's escalated to that point. They killed the dude. Yep. We're gonna take some super chats, bro. Get some questions. Yes. But first, what's your Twitter handle?
You guys can find me at Lives Matter Show on Twitter, YouTube Lives Matter, Instagram Lives Matter Official, and Parler, and Facebook Lives Matter. Even though I hate Facebook. Yes.
And do you primarily just cover on the ground stuff?
Yes. I mean, I got into this game with men on the street stuff, but the game changed because I think people just want to see what's going on, you know, in real time at riots and protests. Right. So that's kind of like been my thing right now.
Especially in the past several months. It's been going crazy. Yep. So I definitely have cited you numerous times.
Thank you.
Elijah, Andy, of course.
Yeah.
Well, Andy, for the most part, I guess they've kind of like threatened him out of the streets, right?
Yeah.
Like the violence against him is so intense that
I've been telling Andy, if you're watching, bro, I know you think I'm joking, but I've told you countless times, get a battle tank. Like you need your own battle tank. I've been calling it the Andy Nobile.
boom.
Yes.
And I'm like,
love
dude,
it.
if you show up, Andy, to a protest in an Andy Nobile, dude, major flex.
But
Yes.
like a little one, like a little tank
Yeah.
that just covers his body,
Dude,
and he has like
we could
a
crowdsource
thick
it. We can go
bulletproof
fund it.
plastic,
Yeah,
and
man.
he's just
Can you
driving
imagine?
around.
Can you imagine Andy Known and Andy Nobile
I can.
Yeah.
covering?
No, but
live?
look. This is the lies and smears against Andy. The attacks against him are designed to make sure he can't do his job because he was so effective at it. And he still is effective. And now they're trying to claim he's stealing videos by retweeting people.
Yep.
It's like, dude, he retweeted you. It doesn't work that way. If you want to put the... And then I love it when they're like, I deleted my video because Andy No tweeted it. It's like, wait, it's Twitter,
Okay.
dude.
Yeah. And
So-
people say things about Andy, you know, because I'm going to defend my friend. Like, Andy is one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life. Like, he's taken the time to hang out with me. He's taken the time, you know, to feed me certain times, you know, like when he didn't have to. You know, he's taken the time to take a guy like me and just kind of like really be there for me as
Yeah,
a friend.
he's a
you
good
know?
dude.
He's an honestly good dude. And a lot of these guys, these journalists, these hardcore left-wingers that smear him in the media, like, shame on you guys. Like, he's a genuinely nice dude.
But it's because they're cultists.
Yep.
They're part of the...
It's a religion.
Look, man, we really are in a dangerous time, but I'm fairly convinced that the overwhelming majority of people in this country do not align with this cult-like ideology.
Nope.
But it is expanding rapidly.
Mhm.
That's scary.
Yeah.
So let's take some super chats.
Yes.
Before we do, make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Timcast. You can check out my other channels on YouTube, Timcast and Timcast News. You can search for them; they'll pop up, I guess. But we got some super chats. First, we got J Mack. He says, some of the best in-depth criticisms of modern movies come from Mahler. He does funny videos called Unbridled Rage, but also more serious deep dives that are really helpful for anyone interested in the medium or just in storytelling. Cool. Let's see. We got...
Great job.
This is
brother.
from G. He says, I'm from Canada. Know you because of Crowder. Disconnected from US MSM. It is clear to me that your upcoming election will determine if the USA remains the land of the free, proud men, or becomes Western China. So I hope on November 3rd, the USA will turn red and no red mirage. It's really funny that they turn red because, you know, commies are red. But, you know, that's just the way it is. It was funny when...
The Red Army.
Do you remember when AOC was like, we're going to flip this seat red?
Yeah.
And everyone was
Yes.
like, that's Republican. No, in her mind, it was communist. It was socialist, you know? Right.
Yikes.
What was that guy's
Slip.
name earlier? The Antifa guy?
Oh, the commander, Red Commander.
Commander Red.
Oh, Commander Red.
Commander Red.
Commander
Cringe
Red.
Central.
Also,
Oh
if you
my.
haven't smashed that like button, there's a ton of people you smashed. We got cut off earlier. The stream died
yeah, we
for some reason.
recovered. Look at that. That's
Oh, gee, I wonder
crazy.
why.
I know. Spitting truth bombs.
Yeah, spin. Yep. You get Drew on the show and he starts telling all the truth about Antifa, and then Commander Red shows up and just cuts the line.
Nukes
Commander
it.
Red, leader of the Red Army.
Please forgive us.
All right, David Walker says many crimes have an intellectual and physical component that can be done by different people. So if someone yells "kill him" to a crowd, they are also considered to have killed the person, even though they didn't do it personally. That's really interesting. All right, let's go back to some of these earlier super chats. We got Loof Waff says the reason Tim don't want the right to protest is because the left will use anything as propaganda. We need to continue being tolerant, guys. So I'm not going to say what people should or shouldn't do. I just want to be very, very clear. If they're going to go out and protest, well, so be it. I'm not the boss of anybody. I'm just going to tell you, if the Proud Boys go, it will be really, really bad for Trump, and the right and the left will win.
Yep. Something
So-
will happen.
Right. It's so easy. So they could yell I'm not going to say anything. I could imagine 50 million scenarios where they could easily force one Proud Boy into a situation where he has no choice, and that's exactly what it's. And then boom, propaganda
They could
videos.
make the okay sign, and the whole thing.
No,
is
I'm
like-
talking about Charlottesville.
Yeah.
They could force. They could easily do something where a Proud Boy has no choice but to defend himself.
Yep.
And they've got their camera people waiting and ready.
Yep.
And that's it.
You're like Doctor Strange. You're just, a million scenarios.
It's true. 100%.
14 million.
14 million.
Ardwick says they're not defunding the cities; they're just reallocating funds to other cities.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I would like that.
I would love that.
Yep.
Stephen Arns says paramedic from Grand Rapids, Michigan, $2 million in damage and multiple cop cars burned in riots. No mainstream coverage at all. I didn't know Grand Rapids had
Oh,
rioting.
I gotta look that up.
That's crazy. Because I got friends who live there. I had no idea that happened. Grumpy says, live in Portland. Will be journalizing Proud Boys protest, even in peril. Will make sure to capture everything I can. Hope I can show full spectrum. But the mainstream media will ignore evidence so that if a Proud Boy gets attacked, they will not show it.
Yep.
They won't do it. And there's a lot of normal people like normies that just won't see it. BD says, if Trump is worse than World War II Third Reich leader, yeah, YouTube blocked that word. Really? Does that mean he is like Stalin? Keep getting those Fs in chat. Indie Visualist says, chant Black Lives Matter when one riots unfairly, tags blacks as responsible. It's a Marxist thing. Never say BLM. It is a deflection. They are Antifa. I disagree. Black Lives Matter is a national organization with funding, and they defend the actions of these individuals on the ground. It is a centralized group carrying out acts of violence. Now, the individuals who are going are semi-decentralized, but they have overt public support from major corporations. Yeah. So I would ask these companies like the Boston Red Sox, they put the big Black Lives, the NBA. So Black Lives Matter. You've got people marching around chanting Black Lives Matter, being defended by the Black Lives Matter organization, burning buildings and destroying things. You've also got people saying they're avowed racists. Is it normal for the NBA to take the advice and support avowed racists? Why does the NBA support racism? I look forward to hearing your answers. Frank Jakubiak says, Google is not letting me post a super chat about the 9/11 tribute. I'm not surprised, man. That sounds like Google. Georgiev says, hello, Tim. Should the people from the right middle just lay down and be kicked? I understand your logic. Why should we not retaliate? But still, those people keep burning and hurting people. Should we let that happen? No, law enforcement should deal with it. When I haven't read the full, Art of War from Sun Tzu, but I tell you this, man, it is better. Look, here's what I used to tell the Occupy Wall Street people. The ninjas would target somebody and take them out. They could be in the middle of a village and they would be wearing regular, merchant clothes or whatever. They'd find their target, done, efficient, over. They didn't care about any games. It was win by any means necessary. And I actually know the history of ninja, so I'm probably getting part of it wrong. The general idea, though, is you're not going to storm through the front gates thinking you're going to take over. You need to be strategic. Yep. Whenever I play you ever play Fallout? Mm-hmm. When I play Fallout in Skyrim, you know what I always pick? Sneak, bow and arrow, or in terms of Fallout, sniper. Because my whole game is slow, strategic, methodical. I don't need stim packs in Fallout. You know why? Because I take out all the super mutants before I even get into the building. I walk up in the front. I'm from afar away. I don't got to worry about if they see me. I'm on a hilltop. They can't get me. Yep. Smart. Yep. So you can say you don't want them to get away with it. But is the appropriate response to run in screaming, no, absolutely not. That would be like sending in a weakened force into the enemy territory where you're going to get wiped out. It's a suicide mission. You need to think about winning the war, not the battle.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So as many other people have said, if you do want to win, what you do is, what's the real fight here? The fight here is for the hearts and minds of the people to convince them you're not the bad guys. They're the bad guys. If you want to go out and march through their town and it's going to agitate people, congratulations. They're going to be like, that's the bad guys. They came to our town. Mm-hmm. They're going to propagandize and they're going to manipulate. But if you say back and say, we don't want any trouble. We respect that people are kind of tense over this, and we're gonna lay back and we're gonna go protest out in a rural area in an open field and assert our expression. People are gonna be like, I respect that, thank you. Yeah. Like, you got to think about it this way. If someone told me Antifa was coming to my neighborhood, I'd be really, really agitated. I'd be like, I don't want these people here. What is going on? These people are violent. If someone told me the Proud Boys were coming to my neighborhood, you know my response is gonna be, oh, Antifa's gonna show up if they come here. Why are they coming here? Regular people are thinking this right now. They're thinking, why are they coming to my neighborhood? I get it, though. I get it. I'm not saying you guys do what you want to do. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I respect the right to protest. But I'm just saying, think about what happens after you do this. Yeah. I don't care what anybody does, as long as you don't be violent. I know Antifa will be violent. They should be the ones blamed for it all. I think law enforcement should deal with it, 100%. Cirilio says, what are the odds that the BLM mobs harassing diners would see the error of their ways if they were stood up by a German migrant yelling, I'm not going to read that. They wouldn't. The Hylian Juggalo says, if Tim Pool is the hero of time, Pelosi is the demonic spirit haunting the Majora's Mask cartridge. Democrats shouldn't have done this. Here's $20 for listening to my cringe. I love it. Let's see. We'll jump up. We have a bunch here. Iceman says, thank you for all the amazing journalism you have done over the years. I have learned a lot from you guys over the years, but I've been watching especially close recently. Today I ordered a bulletproof vest. I'm scared they will come tear down my town. I don't believe they will come to every town, but I believe it's possible they come to your town. Yeah. Like Kenosha. Who would have thought Kenosha, man?
Never heard of it before this.
Yeah, I've heard of it because I'm from Chicago.
Yeah.
And so when I was like, really? Kenosha? That proves you could live in the middle of rural Nebraska and some crazy serial killers running around, killing your farm animals. And when the cops stop him, it makes national news. The cops killed the guy. Oh, he was unarmed, but with a knife.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden everyone is in love with the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. Everyone is in love with body armor. Mm-hmm. Everyone is in love with protecting themselves. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got some high level body armor.
Yep. Because if that does happen, but what have two-way activists, advocates been saying for years?
Exactly
this could happen.
Yeah, this can happen. Mm-hmm. No one listened.
Yeah, and it's funny when the left would say things like, because they're like, do you really think that if a tyrannical government took over, you could stop them with your guns? It's like, first of all,
like the Ben Shapiro, Pierce Morgan interview, right?
What was that?
Remember when they were going back and forth, and Pierce Morgan was like, "You honestly believe that a tyrannical government is gonna overthrow the United States of America?" And Ben's like, "That's what the Second Amendment is written for. Yes. That's why you want a gun? Yes." and he's like, and Pierce Morgan's like, "I don't care. You bring your little book in here." And Ben's like, "That's the Constitution of the United States of America."
Wow.
You see,
I didn't see that.
But this is where we are right now, where we are being looked at as being stupid.
Yep.
Because I really take serious and am grateful for my Second Amendment right. The Second Amendment is not just to defend yourself in your home. The Second Amendment is for that reason, to defend yourself, to form a militia, right? From what? A tyrannical government.
It doesn't say that.
It doesn't.
It doesn't say tyrannical government. I think you're right, though.
Yeah.
So, but that's one of the issues.
Okay.
I don't have it pulled up, but it's a free state,
Mm-hmm.
yada yada. Think about the greater context of what it means to keep your country free. It's external and internal threats.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily mean a tyrannical government. It could mean a violent insurgent communist uprising. We have a right to defend ourselves from crazy people who would do us harm and violate our rights. Yeah. This country is predicated upon we have rights bestowed upon us. End of story.
Yep.
The government does not grant them. And if you try and take them away, we have a right to defend ourselves.
Yep.
I love this country, man.
Yep.
You just go to these other countries, dude. I'd love to take a lot of these people and be like, I'm gonna have you go visit just any one of these countries. There's probably 170 countries you can go to where you're gonna be unhappy.
Yep.
And some of them are fairly wealthy, but like Brazil, for instance, no free speech.
Yep.
You could say something offensive, they lock you up. So when Antifa shows up there and they start preaching about their stupid ideas, a cop could come and arrest them and be like, whoa, you can't say that. People are mad at you. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm preaching social justice. We don't care.
So
it's against the social order.
I think that the freedom that we have in the U.S. is kind of contains the seeds of its own destruction. And I wonder if Drew would agree with me on this, because we're so free and we're able to say whatever the heck we want that we're able to introduce these awful ideas. So you have complete freedom of speech. So you get the chance to stand up tall and just tell everyone horrible ideas that lead to the unraveling of our country.
Totally agree. But the answer to bad speech isn't censorship.
It's more speech.
It's better speech.
Yes.
Right.
It's better ideas. It's more compelling. It's more logical. It's more reasonable. It's more lawful ideas in speech. You see, but the left wants to censor.
Right.
Yep. Because they can't win the idea.
Because they can't win the idea.
Absolutely.
Because they can't win the argument.
Ideas.
They can't hang in an intellectual argument of what is true, what is right, what's the right thing to do. So what do they result to? Just shut them up.
I was having an argument with a friend who said that healthcare was a human right.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how do you have a right to someone else's labor? And they couldn't answer it. So they just come back with, do you think that are you saying that people should just die then and go into bankruptcy because of healthcare? And I said, no. I'm asking you what makes you think you have a right to someone else's labor? Yeah. You want to argue services. Yeah, like a government service. That's not a right. Yeah. The post office, you have no right to the post office. If you walk into the post office, you start screaming and swearing, they'll kick you out.
Yeah.
But what about my rights? I have a right. No, you don't. You can use the service same as everybody else. You can pay for the service. Our tax dollars go to plumbing. You have no right to tear up the ground and rip up the plumbing, but I pay for this plumbing. Shut up. It doesn't work that way. You don't have a right to go to a doctor and be like, I would like you to perform healthcare on me. And he's going to be like, get out. Nope, you can't do that. It's a right.
Perform healthcare on me.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes. Perform healthcare
That's what
on
they
me.
call it. Yeah.
Doctor.
Do healthcare at me.
Do healthcare. Give me healthcare, sir. One healthcare, please.
Yes. Yep.
They can kick you out.
Yep.
It's voluntary. You have no right to these things.
Yeah.
The rights we have for the I don't know what you. I'll leave it there. You get the idea. We have a lot of negative rights. You can't tell me I can't say things, within reason. But asserting that you have a right to someone else's business, when I get into these conversations, they have no answers for them.
Yeah.
When Bernie Sanders says healthcare is a human right, it's not. It's because if you were in the middle of the woods, you have no access to healthcare. No one can guarantee it for you. So there are certain things we can argue that should be provided, but can't be guaranteed. Fresh running water, clean water. Some places have a law where if I walk into your store and say I need water, you got to give it to me. Places like Arizona have that. For obvious reasons, you could die. But you might not be able to get water still. You might find all the stores are closed. You have no right to the water. So it's I'm sure there's an argument there where they can say you do have a right but can't get physical access. Sure, fine, but you get the point. C. Niff says, perfect example of what a peaceful protest is, where 2 million South Koreans got together and at a festival where they advocated for the dismissal of their own president, which actually worked. Playing devil's advocate, why can't BLM or Antifa do this? Well, they could, but they don't want to because they don't want reform, and you would get reform. They want revolution, nothing less. Connor Outlaw says, Tim, as a recruit division commander, USN drill instructor, I have seen young men and women come together as a team regardless of race or cultural differences. The racism the media pushes is a lie. I agree.
Yeah, you got a common goal.
They want people to be racist.
Yep.
I was thinking about this. I'm like, my family has stories about the civil rights, the life in the country before civil rights and all this stuff. And I've talked about it in the show. And I'm like, wow, we sure have come a long way, where my grandparents were fleeing because of these miscegenation laws. It was illegal for them to be together. And now here I am, their grandson, successful, prominent political commentary and cultural show. It wouldn't have been possible back then. Now it's just not even, it doesn't even matter. Like, people make fun of me when I bring up mixed race because it matters so little, and it's silly that I bring it up. But the left is making it an issue. They're bringing all of these things back. And I started thinking, why are they changing the definition of racism? Because there's not overt racism to point out as much. So, back in the day, you'd be like, look at this store banning people. Well, nobody does that anymore. So they need that wedge issue to incite divisions between people and manipulate minorities into voting for them. So they keep changing the definition to fan the flames. And now racism has become this insane, like, I don't even know what people think racism is at this point. Because now they're saying, like, there was an article, I think it was the Huffington Post, I'm not sure, that said black men are the white people of black people. Do you ever see that article? It's getting to the point where they're like, we need a way to define privilege. So now, like, the word white just means, like,
well,
privileged.
In Los Angeles the other day, right? The shooting that took place, some blue check dude on Twitter literally went to Twitter a couple hours after, and he started calling the police officer that was Hispanic a white Hispanic.
Right. Yep. That was. I'm not going to say the guy's name. I don't want to give him any.
Yeah. I mean, that's like inciting race.
Yeah, it's race baiting.
Literally race baiting.
100%, yeah.
And can you believe the people that go on Twitter and start yelling that Sean King is white? It's like, come on, man.
I know, right?
Come on.
It gets clicks. It gets clicks. It makes money. It gives them political fuel for elections, and minorities, they just buy it, And I have to say, like, for the Hispanic community, 2016, I think the Hispanics were definitely being utilized as political pawns. I think 2020 right now, it's definitely the black community for sure.
Well, so do you think Trump is doing well among Latinos and the black? I think we talked about the black community in the polls, but what do you think about the Latino community?
I think, well, right now, I think as of 2020, the Latino vote will be the largest vote in American history. I'd have to look at some certain polls, right? I'd have to look at some certain polls, but I know that the Latino communities are waking up to the realities and the lies that they've been told, right? Like
everybody feels that way,
like you said earlier, right? What won me over with Trump was the human trafficking, was the border situation. Why? Because I didn't want open borders, and I didn't want my country to become like Germany with just complete open borders and everything is overrun and overthrown. But as a Hispanic person, the situation at the border with human trafficking, there are Mexican little girls, some that are being human trafficked on a nightly basis by coyotes from Mexico into the United States.
We got to stop there because people don't know what coyote means.
Yeah.
And I remember when Trump referenced this and they all started laughing because they don't know what a coyote is.
Yeah.
So you want to explain what a coyote is?
Coyotes are basically used. They're the runners. They're the pimps.
It's the people.
It's the people.
The code name.
The code name.
Yeah.
The people that are grabbing these little girls, and they go back and forth. Some of these little girls are raped up to sometimes like 45 times in one night.
That's such a mess.
And so this is why it's such a shame. It's a shame when AOC or these leftist politicians will jump up and say, there's a Trump, there's no national emergency. There's no emergency. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There are little Mexican little girls right now, as I speak, that are being raped across the border. That's a problem. And these leftists want to act like they care about minorities when Donald Trump is the one that wants to do something about it at the border. It all adds up. And that's what 2016 was about. And for me personally, that's what won me over.
Take a look at this article.
Let's take a look.
Does Trump think there are actual coyotes coming over the border?
Unbelievable. This
Smuggler
is Vox.
coyotes.
Oh
No,
my
this is good. This article is good. Smuggler coyotes are a problem at the border, not dogs. The fact that Vox had to write an article explaining this because Trump was being attacked. Because Trump said, here's a nation without borders is a nation not at all. Without borders, we have a reign of chaos, crime, cartels, and believe it or not, coyotes. Trump said of the Senate spending bill, he's refusing to sign due to it not meeting his demands on border security funding. And all of a sudden, Twitter erupted with these snooty elitists being like, Trump is really concerned about coyotes barking and like coming. Oh man! And so you know what I did one time? I was like, Google coyote and Trump, and I'm like, what is he talking about? Oh, the smugglers. That's right.
They're making a mockery out of human trafficking and rapists.
I got into it.
That's embarrassing. That's a shame. That should be condemned. And see, this is why a lot of Latino voters are being won over, because the Latino community is all about family and loyalty. Dude. And when we see stuff like this really pisses us off because it shows that these people don't care about our people.
I got into it with one of my Hispanic friends because she's very caring, she's very maternal, she has a little girl. I was like, one thing that you need to know before you say Orange Man bad loud at me and tell me that you can never consider voting for him, you need to know what is coming over the border and what is being done to these people. And these girls are your daughter's age. And I really didn't want to be emotional with her, but I was like, you know what? This is something that you need to know before you say, "Oh, he's too orange for me. He's too bad."
And
he's
do you
too
know
racist.
why? Do you know why Democrats? Do you know why the left? And I don't want to make it left and right, but this is just where we are right now. The reason why they won't even talk about it is because Donald Trump already has. Think about that.
They can't.
Think about it. The reason why they won't address it is because Donald Trump already has. And I'm not up here to advocate for Trump or anything like that. I'm speaking for these little girls. They won't address it because of their stupid pride, because they hate Donald Trump so much.
Yep.
They won't come out and say, maybe we should work with him on this. Maybe we should address it too. But they can't because Orange Man bad, and they hate Donald Trump so much that they can't stand up for little girls, 12-year-old girls that are being raped at the border, sometimes 45 times in one night. Why won't they do it? Not even because of politics, but because of Donald Trump. He's already done it. So they can't be seen aligning with Trump.
Exactly.
Disgusting.
Think about that, people. Think about that right now. Is that right? Yes or no? Let us know in the comments. Smash the like button.
Sure.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. There you nailed it.
Nailed it, man.
Listen.
I love it. Woo.
A broken clock is right twice a day. To the Democrats, Donald Trump is always wrong.
Yeah.
Something's not right there. That means they're spinning those dials. How is that possible? And I've had people ask. I've talked to people about this. I've talked to some people who like announced they were, told me they were going to switch for Trump, and I said, "What was the moment you realized?" And they told me essentially, how is it possible that literally everything he says is wrong? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And so when all they would ever hear is he screwed up, he screwed up, he screwed up, then people were saying, like, people would tell me, like, I decided I got to check that because now it seems weird because he can't do one thing right. Now I'll tell you, I rag on Democrats all the time, and I think they always do things. They tend to screw up a whole lot. But I've given praise, and I try to make sure if they do something good, I'll give it the respect it deserves. When Joe Biden condemned violence, He did it. He did it a while ago. I said thank you for calling these people out and saying they should be. It was like a month or so ago. Be prosecuted. Thank you. However, I still don't think you're fit for president. I think you're weak, and your campaign has previously supported these people. When AOC and Warren challenged big tech, I said, awesome, congratulations, thank you, it's the right thing. They can't do that. I can say I don't like these people. I don't think they should be representing us, but I still can respect where they've done things that I think are appropriate. They won't do that for Trump. Trump can be like, these human traffickers are bad, and they'll go like, actually, we think they're God. They'll shut up. And
then they'll turn around and say, we care about you Mexicans, we care about you Hispanics, we care about you black people. But when it comes down to it, their foolish pride because of a president that's already done it. Listen, it's not even so much that they hate Trump. It's because he's already done it.
Can you believe?
So they can't side with him. And we're talking about human beings. We're not talking about cartons of milk. We're not talking about, objects of, things that are being done in politics. We're talking about people. We're talking about people.
The most shocking thing to me is there has been not one Democrat with the decency to take a picture of themselves eating a taco bowl, saying that they love Hispanics. I'm kidding.
Okay, it's a little bit of pandering.
Yeah.
I know, man.
No, they won't, and that's insane. And that shows me that they're not being serious. Because I've long said this, and I think a lot of people have agreed with me. If the Democrats offered up a moderate candidate who was willing to say yes to the things they thought were actually good ideas, like if Trump says we need strong borders and security, and they had a moderate Democrat saying, well, Trump's right about that. We do need strong security and strong border. Imagine this. Imagine very early on in 2016, Hillary Clinton was a terrible candidate. Like, that was the big mistake they made. Now they're in trouble. If Donald Trump came out in 2015 and was like, I'm going to build a big, beautiful wall, 30 feet concrete from sea to shining sea, everyone's cheering. If they had a regular person being like, look, Trump makes a good point about needing to secure this. We do have problems, and I'm in agreement on border security. I'm not going to put together a 30-foot beautiful wall from sea to shining sea. I'll defer to him on that one, but I'll put up some new fencing in select areas. That person probably would win. But they didn't do that. They did Hillary. They did War Hawk Hillary, who was talking about how she didn't care if we ended up going to war because of the no-fly zone overseas, a whole bunch of stuff. And she was just horribly elitist and unlikable. And they lost. And instead of giving us an actual, and then from that point on, their brains broke. And they could not ever produce a candidate who was willing to say, oh, I agree with Trump on these issues 100%. We just need this, that, and this. That's why I disagree. They couldn't do it. If they did, probably could have won. Instead, they get Joe Biden. I love it when he's like, I challenge Donald Trump to condemn violence. It's like, you know what? They because they can't agree with Trump, they just deny reality. It's like Trump needs to denounce the violence. But he's been screaming about it for months. There's no solution with these people.
And these people claim to care about people from different countries. They claim to care about Mexicans. Like, I'm talking about real Mexicans, right? From Mexico. They claim to care about Latinos from different South American countries, but they don't.
I don't think so.
They don't.
Absolutely not.
You see, like,
they don't.
And you see what Joe Biden said when he was talking about the black community, when like for no reason he referenced, he alluded to them being a monolith essentially. When he was like, unlike the Latino community, it's like, why did you even bring them up? Why would you say that? They don't actually care, because if they did, they would listen to the people who fled Cuba, like the what was his name, Maximo Alvarez, was it at the RNC?
Yeah. And then
you see that story?
Yeah, it was gnarly.
The owners of that little shop that Black Lives Matter was extorting.
Oh, in Louisville.
They didn't care about
the
them.
Cubans. You see that story in Louisville?
They escaped.
Man, when I was watching that RNC speech from Maximo, he I think his family he said they fled Spain and then Cuba, and it was like, man, it was that speech and Ann Dorn's speech that were really emotionally like heavy. I'm watching all these Twitter pundits who hate Trump, and they're all screeching at the top of their lungs, "Orange man bad," making fun of the speakers. You know what happened as soon as Ann Dorn began speaking? Their accounts went silent. It was as though 1,000 voices had been silenced, because they could not criticize a woman crying over the loss of, first of all, it was a white woman who her the love of her life was a black man who was gunned down in these riots because these cities, they could not get a hold of the crime. What are they going to say about that? I'm glad that she was able to speak and explain, express the pain she went through. People were crying. Frank Luntz, the pollster, said people around him were crying, and I'm like, yeah, man.
Well, remember the last State of the Union? What did Nancy Pelosi do?
She tore up the speech.
She tore up the speech that included minorities, wartime veterans, some people.
She hates Trump so much.
She tore up the
I can't
speech.
stand these
she
people.
tore up the speech of, included wives that have lost husbands.
Mm-hmm.
There are tons of minorities in that speech. She stands up there in front of the world and she rips it. And then they expect us to sit here and actually believe that they care about us. And I just want to say this is, the Hispanic community, the Black community, like you guys are worth so much more than what these people are claiming you are. You're worth more than a welfare check. You're worth more than government assistance. Like, you have God-given capabilities literally to just take on the world. Like, you're more than what they're telling you that what you are. They tell you you need to be on welfare. They tell you you need to be on government assistance. They tell you that you need, to rely on them for everything. But you are literally worth and capable of so much more as a minority. Don't let these people continue to put you in a box to actually think that you need a crutch and you need assistance to live as a human being. That's not progression. That's going backwards. That's telling human beings that you're not worth anything and that you need us in order to survive. You have the ability to be so much more.
You see that viral video where the black woman is talking about how Trump won without the black vote, but he still keeps trying to. So he got black unemployment really low, and he keeps talking about it, how he's really proud, and he's trying to help people out. And she's saying he didn't do that. He didn't do that. He won without the black vote. Why is he still trying to help the community? And she's like, I like it. So I think Trump.
Maybe because they aren't. Maybe because the other side has had decades to change things for these communities.
And they have not.
Chicago hasn't gotten any better. All these blue cities,
worse.
It's gotten worse. Listen, for people listening right now, the black community had the first black president of the United States. And where was he from? Chicago. And has Chicago...
Well, technically Hawaii, but...
Right, but has Chicago gotten any better even after the advent of the first black president of the United States of America? No. Why?
There's actually a lot of people in Chicago who have brought that up, particularly in the black community. They were like, Obama was here. What did he do? And I will be fair and say some of these cities have deep-seated problems that are not so easy to fix. Mm-hmm. But I will tell you, at a certain point, whether or not look, Los Angeles has a Democrat supermajority. They can't solve their homeless crisis. Mm-hmm. It's almost like there's no political competition. So what happens is a Democrat runs, they either win by default or they just say, yeah, look, we'll give you all these things. There you go. Mm-hmm. And then they get elected and they just don't do anything, but no one cares and no one votes for anybody else. Mm-hmm. I think one of the problems is that Republicans don't try to gain a foothold in many of these areas. And because there's no competition, the Democrats do nothing. Mm-hmm. They're a dull blade because it's the only thing you get. It is a monopoly. The Democrats in many of these cities is akin to a cable service provider that has no obligation to service you properly because what are you going to do about it? Yeah. I'll tell you this. You ever see the South Park episode where they go to the cable company and the guy has the flaps on his nipples? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, tell me about your problems. And he's like, yeah, and he's rubbing his nipples.
It's Democrats.
Like, oh, yeah, exactly. That's Democrats in these cities.
Yeah, exactly.
Being like, you have a problem? Who are you going to vote for? Oh, that's too bad. You can't vote for anybody else.
Yep.
There you go.
And I still have to, and I know I'm going to get a lot of crap for this, but I still have to speak to these communities because they're still voting that way. They still vote for that.
But I'll tell you,
it.
But I'll tell you what the problem is. In my opinion, Donald Trump has been trying really hard to particularly to get the black vote.
Yeah.
But I believe he's actually trying to help the black community.
Yes.
And if you look at Kanye West and Candace Owens and many of these black conservatives, why they support Trump, I hear them and I'm like, wow, I hear what you're saying. It's interesting. I respect your opinion. Do your thing. I think it's going to take outreach. Donald Trump did it.
Yeah.
Donald Trump was like, vote for me, let me work for you. Mm-hmm. But I was talking, we had a black conservative, Billy Prempe, who's running in North Jersey for Congress. Mm-hmm. And he's basically saying how the GOP doesn't want to even bother with many of these deep blue cities because it's too expensive. Yep. So they focus elsewhere. You have to.
At least try.
You need political competition.
At least try.
Yes. And even if trying is like, even if you can't win, you are chipping away at this, to form that sculpture over time. You need to go around, do outreach. Look, in AOC's district, the Republican who was running against her when she first ran didn't even have a website.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm assuming that's true. You have to fact check me because that was years ago now. But like, not even really running.
See, but here's, I think this is where the conversation, Tim, turns into more is, do I love you? Because
I just met you, bro.
like,
Right.
Listen though, if I love you, I'm going to run into a burning building for you. Even if I know I'm going to die risking my life to save you. I'm not going to calculate. I'm not going to say, oh, well, the odds of me making out of this alive are either this, or this. I'm going to do everything I can in that moment to get in there and to save your life. And I think politicians don't have that heart for these communities.
Definitely not.
And I think that's what a lot of people are starting to realize. And I think this is where the conversation turns into love for America, love for human beings. Because listen, the GOP needs to understand this. Who cares if you waste $5 million in a district? Who cares if you waste all that money on these communities? But if your answer to me is, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. It's too much money. It's not going to work out. I don't think we can make that happen. That shows me that you're not willing to run into the burning building and save lives because you don't love these people. We're just statistics to you, even on the right.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of Republicans started retiring.
Yeah.
For the longest time, people just allowed.
And I do love you, Tim.
Yes. And we have the cat he's mad. He wakes up around 10 and he's like,
he's awake.
Yeah, because he's
awake
like, the
now.
show's supposed to be over. Feed me.
Yes.
I think about, we're seeing a lot of new Republicans start running.
Yeah.
They're like energetic populist Republicans. And I think this is the shift we needed, where people are finally waking up. You had Democrats and Republicans alike who did not care for their communities. They just knew they'd get reelected. And I think they liked it. They liked that there were areas that would always be red and areas that would always be blue because it meant their job was secure. Well, now it's being challenged.
Yeah.
And now they're starting to get angry. A bunch of Republicans are like, I'm retiring. Donald Trump actively trying to help people in politics. I think there's a light at the end of this tunnel here. Well, everything seems dark and we've got Antifa and all this chaos. It could just be that we're getting the toxins out, we're flushing those toxins out. Toilet's going to stink for a little bit, but I'll tell you what, you'll feel better in a week or two. A better way to put it is, whenever I was little and I felt like I was going to throw up, my dad would always say, just go throw up and you will feel better. You're sitting here complaining that you're on the verge of throwing up for 10 minutes. Just go barf and it'll be over with. That's what we're seeing right now. We need to barf up all these incumbents and bring in real politicians that actually care about the communities. That's why I'm really impressed with people like Kimberly Klacik and Billy Prempeh. They're in areas that are blue, but they're like, we have to stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
Black conservatives. It's not about your race. It's about whether or not you care about your community.
Yeah.
And I think they're running in places where the politicians don't, and they do.
Yeah.
Hopefully they win out, but I have to say the cat is adamant, and of course, as many of you know, he's the boss.
He is, yes.
So when he yells, it's time to go. Do you want to shout out your channel and your socials again?
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, at Lives Matter Show, YouTube, Lives Matter, and Facebook, Lives Matter, Instagram, Lives Matter Official, and Parler is the same.
Right on. And you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Timcast. And you can follow at Sour Patch Lids. That's Sour Patch LYDS on Twitter and Parler. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 p.m. live. We don't have a guest tomorrow night, so we'll be chilling, talking the news, me and Lydia.
Yep.
But we have Michael Malice on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be funny.
That'll be
That's
fun.
going to be great. Michael's smart and funny, and of course, Bucko will be hanging out too. Here he
Yeah,
is.
if we go over, he'll be joining us.
He'll be joining us.
Hard to top tonight. I'm looking forward to seeing if we can
Hopefully
do it.
we don't get cut off again. But thanks for hanging out, everybody. And you can also check out my other channels, youtube.com/Timcast and youtube.com/TimcastNews. What are you doing? Can you
He's
move?
drinking your water.
I
yeah.
can't see the screen. I can't change. Bucko, what do you get your little hand off my water? He's So I have he's blocking the OBS. I can't. You can't fit your head in there, dude.
Oh my gosh.
All right.
Ultimate distraction.
Thanks
Sorry,
for
guys.
hanging out. No, it's great. He's part of the show. We'll see you all tomorrow, and thanks for hanging out.
Bye, guys.